Hey, so we're back again today after
Hello.
marathon yesterday. For me, that was running a marathon. Ooh, that's kind of low. What do we got here? AR. Ain't they best? Ain't they the best type of Christians when you got Jim Bob and Darth Dawkins batting for Jesus, right? That really puts a bad light on Christianity for me when they are the representatives. So anyway, so first of all, so what happened yesterday, I wasn't watching chat particularly carefully, and there was some accusation that somebody called Jim Bob the P word, and I reacted to that, and it was unfair of me, and I was very wrong to react to that when I was not reacting to all the other horrible things that Jim Bob and his clan were doing. And I went after a particular person that came on later and kind of gave me a piece of her mind, as well as giving Jim Bob a really great piece of her mind. And I left that clip in, and I wish I had turned the volume up on well, we're not going to name names. We're just going to call it Jim Bob's absent father. I wish I'd turned the volume up, and I wish I had muted Jim Bob faster, because I really think the tirade that happened was appropriate, and kind of I was very happy, even though some of it was directed at us, and we fucking deserved it. But that always puts me between a rock and a hard place, and I apologize for allowing it. Will I never do it again? I'm afraid I can't make that promise, because like Stephanie said, sometimes you got to bring them in, you got to get the poison out. And now my alternative was to go on Jim Bob's channel, and then would have had Beavers screaming, and he would have been in complete control, and I couldn't have muted him at all. I did mute some of the more egregious things he said to Stephanie, and I wouldn't have it. I wouldn't have any control. So I mean, forgive me. I'm trying to run this channel here. I'm trying to get to the ideas. And I'm trying to interact with these people who, face it, these fucking people are going to vote in November. We have to interact with them. We have to at least get a measure of what they have to say. And I don't know if I won't do it. I guess I will try to do it better, and I'll try to be more, I don't know. Should... like today, if all these so-called Christians come in and they start saying shitty things, a lot of you have a wrench out there. Fucking time them out. Let them go. If they're pissed off, fuck them. We don't need them in our chat stirring shit up and saying nasty things to people. So anytime they say anything, toss them. So anyway. But I apologize for my part in the fiasco yesterday, in that it definitely offended some people, and I was wrong, and I will try to manage this better in the future. Try not to do this again, but anyway. And I certainly am never going to talk to Jim Bob again. I got everything I needed out of the dumb son of a bitch. We displayed his illogic rather well, even though it was all very fast-paced. It was like Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In, right? It was like, so a new skit every 5 seconds. Yeah, but I don't need to talk to him anymore. I have a measure of the man, and he falls far short of any standard that I've ever had for having a person that I care about or would talk to.
Yeah, it was like Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In, except the guy dressed like a Nazi really was a Nazi.
Yeah, that's right. There was that guy. What the hell was his name? Yeah, that was brilliant. Anyway, Oh,
You're referring to Artie Johnson from the show.
yes. Thank you, Scott. Anyway.
And I wanted to throw in apologies too. We had no intent of offending any of our friends in the community. And like Mike was saying, some of these people, and you might not know until you start talking to them. So a lot of people, Jim Bob already has a reputation, but you may be talking to somebody and then they start saying something and you get caught off guard, and it's hard to know what somebody's going to say. So
yeah, and then Leo and Mark come in, and Leo and Mark and we had some slightly different ideas about physicalism. Like Leo and I disagree on abstract concepts, and that doesn't help. That we have different ideas about physicalism, and I don't know if I disagree with Mark all that much, but. But fuck, what we're doing here is we're looking at the ideas and the narrative that Jim Bob spews forth on his channel, and that narrative is persuasive to thousands of people. He got 4,500 views on the stream yesterday where he covered our stream, right? And we got 750 views on my channel, 100 and some on your channel, Dave. And so all of those people were lapping this bullshit up. And so the best we can do is, I can try, and I consider myself a philosopher, even though I hate philosophers, hate myself. And the best we can do is try to explain how some of these ideas work. Okay. And how these ideas go wrong, how the narrative goes wrong. And we can try to educate all of you guys out there, all you guys who are going to interact with these people at some point. And I can try to persuade you to my hardened view of physicalism, because my hardened view of physicalism is absolutely immovable when it comes to this kind of bullshit. Unfortunately, putting it into dialogue and fighting on your feet in real time, not so easy. Especially if you can't get people to agree to the model in the first place. So anyway, I wanted to cover a few things here. What do I want to cover? I want to cover, I don't know. You guys got anything you want to say about yesterday that we should, do you think I've really fucked up horribly?
no, like I said, we spent how long talking about his arguments, and he was in the chat for how long, and it was kind of like, okay, well, he's not going to come on or anything. And then he came on. So, I mean, we were kind of putting it out there, come on. So,
Yeah, and I didn't think I was, usually I'm, after an hour of streaming, I'm fucking burnt out, right? So,
but I mean, there's a lot of people though that go into the lion's den, and you can half freaking behave yourself. You know what I mean? Yeah. He strolls in and he's like, shut up, and it's like, I didn't do that when I was on his channel. I didn't do that when I've been on some other channels that were the lion's den. You know what I mean? I went in there to talk, and I did my talk, and then I left. So that's just beyond, it's beyond rude. I mean, come on,
Okay, here we go. Now to give you some idea who these people are, at Fredo3161, and I quote, "That lady losing her shit at the end was hilarious. Complete emotionality." Right there. What is he saying? Oh, women are emotional and men aren't. Women are so emotional, that, we can just discount them because they're emotional. Well, listen, dude, you have a limbic system, and unfortunately, most of it is connected to your dick, and you're emotional too, except your fucking dick is the only thing that comes up, right? It's the only thing that comes up. Empathy doesn't come up. Reason, all the things we love about emotions doesn't come up. Just your fucking dick.
It's appealing to people's worst sides. That's all it is. It's stirring up, name calling and sexism, racism, bigotry on down the line. Just for laughs. And they're not even to. Well, I don't want to say it. Never mind. Go ahead.
Maybe we should. Okay, and it gets worse. Complete emotionality, even told all her dudes to shut up. Now, we're not her dudes, for one thing, and she's not ours, and she doesn't rubber stamp everything we do. No. But then he says, couldn't control her at all. Now, just dwell on that little phrase for a while. Couldn't control the woman in the stream. Oh, we men need to control the women in our lives. And that leads right into the whole fucking thing with domestic violence and why women are being
and all you had to do was hit the button. I mean, you had the control.
And I let her go because I thought it was amazing. I thought it was fucking amazing. I wish I had turned her up. I wish you had better audio. In fact, if I get a good transcript of that, I may just.
And she was absolutely right. We should have said it for her. We should have said it for her. We had no excuse for not.
But right here, you can see the kind of fucking sick.
But we were trying to laugh it off, though, and it was at the expense of some people in the audience. That wasn't fair. We were trying to ignore that to try to get to, point out his arguments, and so.
Well, fuck. I would have had him muted the whole time. I would never have let him say a word he
says a lot of stupid shit.
He was calling us dummies, and the insults were flying so fast that I couldn't fucking. And the mute button on fucking Restream, when you click on it, it waits a full half a second before it does anything. And then, of course, me and Scott were both muting at the same time. I don't know, make an excuse.
That mute button was smoking.
I'm glad that I had the party, and I'm surprised he didn't rage quit. But he doesn't do that. He sticks around. He's a bruiser. Anyway, you would say that ya bitch made fajet. What the fuck is this? What does that mean? Answers in atheism. You would say that ya bitch made forget.
What bitch made?
I know. Okay, I got you. Okay.
Oh, he's calling you a faggot.
Yeah. Jesus, pretty.
We're all beta.
When we get back on the Stone Age, who's the first one getting fed to the wolves? I think you're going to be first. I'm proud of her and humbled. Spot on.
What church that boy goes to?
What's that?
I wonder what church that boy goes to.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Oh, I'm sure they're all just. The ladies are all properly dressed, and they're sitting next to their little hubbies and taking. The funny thing is, I know a Christian couple who I've known them for 30, 40 years.
There's Grayson's comment in there. I see.
Where? Oh,
that's a good one.
Fucking love Tsunami.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. It caught my eye.
Okay. Anyway, I know this couple, good Christian couple, Bible thumping fundamental Christians, and one of them, the husband insists that, it says right in the Bible that the woman should be in control of the household. And he's one of these guys that if his wife even fucking clicks her teeth together, he jumps up and takes, and he will do anything that she tells him to do. And it's like, okay, I'm looking at your relationship, and he's a nice, gentle guy. He's not the type of guy to run roughshod over a woman, but he insists that he's living according to this biblical plan. But she is so much in control of that household that it just kills me. Every time he brings it up, I want to say, "You're not wearing the pants in that family." I mean, I don't want to mention his name, but holy shit.
My grandparents were dear, sweet people, but you knew who ran the house, and it was Grandma. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Every woman in my family has run the house. I mean, they're the ones to please. Uh, I don't know. I don't know what the fuck they're talking about. These
my grandfather one time was explaining to my mother what the doctor had said, about whatever, and my grandma's like, no, that's not what he said. You don't know what you're talking about. She steps right in, but
yeah,
because
yeah,
he
yeah.
obviously wasn't there.
Yeah, that's the way it is with this Christian couple I was telling you about. The woman always just shuts them the fuck up right away.
But there was always the love there. I mean, I'm not saying it was disrespectful or anything, but there was yeah. I mean, my grandfathers were very respectful, and they let grandma speak.
Skyworks is blocked. Oh, blocked in. You're blocked in Jim Bob's channel. Skyworks.
All right.
Anyway, yeah, they haven't blocked me yet. They will shortly. I don't know. They're gonna get sick of listening to my shit. So, anyway,
I had enough.
yeah.
Yep.
It's like I say, it's like going on Donnie's stream or something. You get sick of hearing, "Oh, your grandma's a monkey." Yeah.
Yeah, you're dummy. It's like, okay, that's a good argument. Then all you can do at the end of the discussion is call them dummies back because it's just like
I like turnip.
they don't get it. Turnip's good. Yeah. Yep.
Catches them off guard because they're waiting for a cuss word or something or whatever, and I just throw turnip, and they have to stop and think about it for a minute. What does he mean by turnip?
So a couple things came up in comments. Dude guy atheist, you guys are clowns. Stephanie, and he quotes Stephanie, we can see the effects of electrons. Great argument, just about as good as we can see the effects of God, how he created the universe. No, okay. He doesn't understand how science works, right? We don't just see an effect of an electron and say, oh, there's an electron there. No. They figured out that electrons existed by a number, like a whole bunch of crossing experiments, right? That looked at it from one way and then another way and then another way and another way. And we figured out all this stuff about quantum mechanics and chemistry by hundreds and thousands of different experiments that all correlated like a crossword puzzle goes together. It's called inference, basically, but it's not. You don't use one data point and then infer a model. You use thousands of data points and you fill out that crossword puzzle, and that's how you create a model. That's how evolution is done. It's done with millions of data points, right? And that's how physics and cosmology is done. And they didn't just make up the Big Bang to solve some problem for evolution. There's all sorts of data involved in all that. Scott, you're being silent. So anyway,
I did a search looking for the answer to the question, can you see electrons with like an electron microscope or something? But I haven't got an answer. I think the answer is no, that we do have to see its effects around us. But you can see large atoms, with an electron microscope. So I don't understand that whole idea of we can see the effects of God just like we can see the electrons. No, we actually science has actually much better data than people have for God.
Oh my God. This guy responded to me when I said, I posted a thing at the top if I had stopped him on every nasty thing. He said he would have been muted the whole time. I treated him like he had Nazi Tourette's. Now I wanted to talk to this guy, and it would have been far worse on his channel where I couldn't mute him at all. And I already said that. And then he responded with these things. Answers in Atheism, AK Curdled Milk Brains. This one I'm going to delete. The next one, I don't care for really off-color bullshit. Remove. You gone. Okay, and then his next one is answers in atheism. You full weenie tartar. What's a tartar? Tartar? What is it? What are the,
Where is this? I
Oh.
lost my.
I'm sure that has reference to the R word.
Okay.
Full weenie.
Full weenie. I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
retard. Maybe it's a version of retard.
Yeah, you know, why don't I?
I'm guessing.
I don't know. Should I delete them all? I wanted to delete that one and care for it.
Read Grayson's. He's talking about emergence.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Well, I said it was emergent. Okay. I didn't see that. I don't think emergence is spooky. An easy way to delineate between two effects of physics for which one is emergent and which is not by looking at which rules govern their behavior. The more fundamental system will be governed by one set of rules, which also applies to other systems, but the emergent system will also be governed by a new set of rules which cannot be describe the more fundamental system. It's easy. There's no spookiness involved. Well, it tends to be problematic in a number of ways, but I see what you're saying. You're saying that an emergent system is going to have more or larger rules that interact, okay, at a higher level. Like, for instance, evolution works that way, multiple hierarchies. And the problem I have with it is all of the slamming and the way philosophers misuse the idea that something emerges and we can't possibly reduce it to anything, right? So I don't like emergence. I like supervenience. And supervenience says that nothing, A and B are related. So nothing happens in A without a correlating thing happening in B. Nothing happens in the mind without something happening in the brain. So the mind supervenes on the brain, even though the mind has its own complicated rules. Now, a lot of philosophers will say when the mind emerges from the brain that there's nothing we can do about it. We're never going to, they're Mysterians, they're never going to be able to explain it. And so I tend to shy away from emergence talk. And I listen to you, Dave, talk about emergence with Bobhead, Dumb Bob, Dim Bob, with Dim Bob. And Dim Bob was using all the tricks that come with the emergence territory, right, to counteract you. And, it kind of, he attacked you with it. So don't use emergence, use supervenience. It's a lot easier. There's nothing wrong with saying supervening systems have more complicated rules that we can identify at a macro level. So, yeah.
My terminology may not always be correct, but my idea was, though, that if you laid down neural pathways in the brain, that's physical.
Yeah.
That's that, and because he's throwing back, the physicalism thing, and I'm like, well, these things are observable and measurable and testable and demonstrable, and that's what more do you want? It's not physical. It's like, yes, it is.
Leo, there are Mysterians that would claim that the emergence is so complicated, and they tend to slide into a spooky bit of territory. And I can find you some examples, and that's why what's wrong with just using supervenience? Why is supervenience not adequate? Oh, yeah, well, no, I'm not. Supervenience basically works on both emergent systems and any other kind of system. Supervenience just plain works all the time. It hooks it up. Yeah, I know. I said Mysterian because there are Mysterians out there that use that.
And like I told you earlier, I cited Peter Atkins when they asked about information, and he said, the universe is full of information. All you need is a simple structure. You have information. So, yes, but they want to, of course, information like a code. It means God, et cetera, et cetera. But he says, no, you don't need that. And then the simple structure can add complexity, and there you have it.
Yeah. So,
and I always like his answers to things, which I like is a simple answer because it always seems when they're trying to add too many things to it, they're trying to explain away. It always seems like these simple explanations are a lot harder to defeat than Jim Bob talking about an hour.
Yeah, so no matter what you do, basically, we always have a space-time coordinate system that we model things on, and that's kind of what we're stuck with. That's how our brains work. That's how our senses work, right? So information is just basically where things are in the universe. Why is that not working? Oh my God. You can't see the screen, right? You can't see what I'm drawing.
It's there, but nothing's showing up.
Yeah.
It's a nice little grid.
What the fuck? Okay. Well,
Turn it off and back on again.
Fill some dead air here for me. Nope, that one doesn't work. Stoldar, item 0. Nope.
We got a bunch of people in the chat, Nitty and Doorknob and Skyworks and Logan and God Equals and Leo. And
I missed God Equals.
I'll be damned.
Michael was through.
Where's Michael's iPad? It's gone. Fucking disappeared on me. Hang on a second. I'm going to reset things.
And we got BS Lewis and Swifter.
Yeah, quit mirroring. Huh. Wow. Interesting. Now it's mirroring. You little devil. You little devil. What a little devil it is. Okay. We'll try this again. Item 0. Reflector 4. Nope. Not working. Not popping up. This is weird. Weird. You know, maybe I ought to get rid of the Mac. Jesus. This is horrible.
It's cursed.
Horrible. It is cursed. There we go. I think we got it now. Anyway, okay. Anyway, I was saying, information is just where things are placed in the universe. So it has a physical substrate, right? Like if you have a magnetic tape, okay, imagine that this thing here is a disk drive or a magnetic tape or something, and it's storing information. Well, it's storing a 1 and a 0 and a 0 and a 0 and a 1 and a 0 because the magnetism is placed right here, right? Okay. Now, he asked the question, he said, well, what happens to the information when all of the physical substrates that represent it disappear? Now, if that happens in the universe under physicalism, the information doesn't exist anymore anywhere. Okay, what he's trying to say is if you have a human being right here, and what happens if all the information disappears out here in the world, but the human being's still thinking about it? Well, I'm sorry, dude, under physicalism, it's still represented physically in some fashion in this creature's brain. Like if I remember this sequence of numbers 1 0 0 0 1 0 0 0 0 1, if I memorize that, in some respect, that information is stored in the relationship of particles, which would form neurons inside of my brain. So the information is still there, but it's physically represented inside of a brain. And he wanted to pull. They always pull this trick. They always try to get you to go inside the mind. The mind is so spooky, and it's like, oh, there's stuff there that is not physical. So they're dragging in. They're arguing with you about physicalism, but they won't accept the major premise of physicalism, which is every fucking thing is physical, including your mind. Okay, that's what you're arguing with him about, right? And they're like he claims he's doing an internal critique, and then he comes up with this bullshit that information still exists when it's gone everywhere in the universe. Now, the other neat thing about information is that we can make a copy of it. We can just copy it right out. You know, we can make two pieces of information that have something in common, right? So we have, like, if you look at like how stars are clustered in the universe, right? That sort of thing. And then you look at another cluster over here. Okay. There's this particular thing forms like a triangle, and it could be exactly spaced in the same manner or very, very similar, right? So you have triangles in both spots. There's basically some homology between two different structures. We can make my little triangle here. Tell me if this makes sense, guys. Okay, we have three stars that are different stars, but they're arranged in a very similar pattern, right? So there's something homologous between these two different structures. And that's the really interesting thing about material in a space-time coordinate system, right? That it can have this homology between two different structures that are, you know, vastly far apart and vastly different. And that's how our brains work totally. Our brains work totally on finding those homologies. So, you put the link out, Scott?
Yeah, James wanted to hop on.
Okay. Oh, good. Good. What BS is this guy spouting? Physicalism as if accepting methodological naturalism is a religion. What the fuck is he talking about? What is he talking about? Is he out of his mind? Is this one of those incels from JimBob's channel?
No.
No.
It's mocking.
Oh, mocking who? Oh, mocking.
It's as if scientific explanations is a religion. It's like,
okay.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I apologize. I'm a little sensitive about people popping up. Star Song, have been here before?
Yep, I know Star Song.
Yeah.
Okay, I should recognize Star. I'm sorry. James, hey.
Neither, guys. How are you?
Yeah.
Am I too loud, too quiet?
No, you're good.
You're just right.
Awesome.
Yeah. What do you got to say about this fiasco?
So, what do you think Jim Bob's overarching goal is? Is it to score points for the culture war? Is it to justify Jesus?
Money.
I mean,
Money.
No,
he had a whole bunch of super chats after he was done over here.
Yeah.
Oh.
I'd say the first one and the second one, like money and the culture wars. But
Well,
he doesn't give a shit about Christianity.
how much money is that worth? Because I might decide to like make some streams where I hate on you guys too.
He pulled up. Mike was just saying he raised $2,000 to pay for his travel to Miami.
The red pill community to go out and talk to the red pill.
They paid for him to go on vacation.
It doesn't surprise me at all that he's in the red pill community.
Mm-hmm.
But man, I didn't know it paid so well to hate you guys. I might sign up for that.
He gets $100. He gets $100 super chats. Yeah, James, please. So,
I need a helmet. Mike has a lisp, and Scott is a hick.
Yeah,
you got that?
Yeah.
Okay, just say that a lot.
I was laughing so hard every time he said crazy shit to you guys. Like, he meant for it to hurt. He wanted us to be upset, and it made my day every time he said it.
Yeah, I got to go off on him and call him a little weenie, and your dick is a little willy.
I came in later, and somebody was really yelling at him and calling him out and cussing him out. Who was that?
That was should we say it was Sumami.
Oh, is that who that was?
Yeah. That was
already.
That was good. And he kind of shut his mouth during that. I mean, he was, trying to make a few comments, but he was mostly sputtering. And he actually took his video down and cut that part out and uploaded it again.
Wow.
Because I don't think his skin is thick enough to hear what that person was telling him.
I remember at one point he tried doing a comeback to say, "How many abortions have you had?" Let me guess, 3.
Yeah, what does that have to do with anything?
Nothing. He just couldn't think of anything. And my response to
dog
that was
whistles. Yeah.
He's like, was it 2 or 3 abortions? My response would have been 2.5. Somehow you managed to survive. Sorry about the brain damage.
Yeah, it didn't
So-
take fully.
Yeah.
You just got half the brain development or whatever.
Yeah, there you go. Sorry. I just wanted to get, have an overarching understanding of the larger scene here because I felt like I was missing something.
Yeah.
No, we want to make it perfectly clear. So you go ahead and, say what you got to say, James, because we all agree he's garbage.
Yeah.
And we were in no way whatsoever trying to platform any of his garbage.
Right. What I would love to have, if I did a stream about it, I would love to have some Christians come on, listen to his content, and denounce him in the name of the Jesus.
Yeah, I think that would be good.
Yeah. I don't think it'd be hard to find either, because I think most Christians, usually when we run into Christians here on the interwebs, they're the hardened apologists, right, and their fanboys. But most Christians aren't that way, right? And I think most Christians, if they were to listen to some presuppositional nonsense and all the hateful, awful things, the ways that they behave,
Yeah,
I think they'd be quicker than us to denounce all of it.
yeah. And there are, I'm guessing there are a lot of Christian women in this country that don't agree with this bullshit that they keep spewing about, oh, you're just being emotional, man.
Yeah.
It's like, that's exactly the kind of thing that's used on women that report domestic violence and they get murdered. And my daughter was murdered as a result of that kind of idea. Oh, you're just being hysterical. Just calm down, man. Just calm down. No, he's not a threat. He's not a threat until he killed her.
Right.
And 20-some police officers treated my daughter that way before she was murdered.
Damn.
And that happens to women everywhere, every fucking day. I don't know how many. I forget how many of those things happen. There's a lot, and they keep doing it.
Damn.
It's got to fucking stop. We got to stop this bullshit.
Right. I mean, I've seen the other side of it too. I remember I was married to somebody that was a very abusive woman.
Yeah.
He had intense psychiatric issues, and the police would always have this disposition that you're the man. If she's getting away with this, it's your fault somehow.
It's your fault. Yeah. Yep.
So.
Yeah. It's and I know quite a bit about the brain, and I know a bit about the limbic system, and in women and men, there's no difference in how our emotional systems operate, or in how often they operate. In fact, I have in my career as a software engineer, when I worked for women, I found them to be much calmer and more rational than any man I ever worked for. Every man I worked for had his dick out of his pants first.
Right.
And it is as far as who, and the dick is a very powerful emotional element. It really takes over a man's brain and makes him a very emotional creature. But not for normal people. Normal people with a good upbringing will learn how to handle their dick and keep it in their pants. But there's a lot of men that can't. And these are the men that are trying to accuse, make this gender separation between. You can't live without emotion. V.S. Ramachandran is a famous neuroscientist. I call him the Rama because he's a god to me.
Yeah.
He had a patient whose limbic system was damaged. And this man did not have a working emotional system, right?
Right.
So this man would... it's going to be easier if I do this. Let's see. Oh, yes. It's going to be easier if I do this. Okay. So there's a street, right? So we got a street and we got another street and they're intersecting, right? And so this man, he would be on the street with him and V.S. Ramachandran, and they wanted to cross to this intersection over here, right?
Right.
So you have a choice of going this way or of going that way. Okay. This man would sit there and Ramachandran let him sit there until he made a decision. He would sit there for like 15 minutes trying to decide which one to go, which way to go, because rationally there's absolutely no difference, right? It makes no difference which way you go. He could not make a decision because he didn't have this emotional element. And this emotional element, it's really kind of cool. It'll just kind of start adding things up. And one will get a little bit bigger, and it's like, boing, we picked that one. And that's an emotional thing. And there were other things that he couldn't do. He was perfectly rational. He could solve puzzles. He could pass intelligence tests, but he could not work. He could not do anything because he couldn't make any decision ever.
I noticed myself going through that same process. I notice it. I stop and I observe it, because I've noticed that I prefer taking routes to a given place that take longer, but that are more aesthetic.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just because it's a more enjoyable experience to go in that direction.
Yeah, there has to be some little tiebreaker somewhere along the line. Like these guys, these Christians, like JimBob, he has 2 neurons, and what he needs is a third one so he can, have a tiebreaker. He needs a tiebreaker.
Yeah, because you need an outside element to look in to examine the arguments. Otherwise, you can never really know what truth is. I'm like,
I don't
what?
even think he believes that shit.
Who? I asked him straight up. I said, well, let me know when you find this method or this device or whatever to do that, because this thing doesn't exist.
The Bible.
Back to precept. Yep.
Problem is, you got to read the Bible and you got to interpret it.
It doesn't solve anything. I mean, look at how the billions of people who look to the Bible for their answers, and they get different answers out of it.
I don't remember Jesus calling everybody a dummy.
Yeah. We have the answers in atheism. We have the answers right here. All the answers in atheism. There are some answers in strict naturalism, like on the abortion issue, right? If you actually look at what's happening to the brain of that little fetus, you know that fetus can't possibly have any kind of sensations or feelings until somewhere around the 3rd, 4th, maybe 5th month. And even then, it's kind of iffy. There's nothing going on in that brain. That brain is not wired. You got to have a wired brain if you're going to feel stuff. So if you're wondering, like when, how late should we allow abortions for, no health reason, right? Or no R-word reason or whatever. It's, it should be around, I think it's around 4 months, about 16 weeks, 20 weeks, something like that, before that brain is starting to, most of what the brain is doing at a fetus is figuring out how to wire the brain so that it has way too many neurons when that child is born. And when the child is born, I'm guessing that there is nothing like the consciousness that we're aware of over and above what the consciousness of a worm. And I know we love those little critters when they're born, but I'm sorry, there isn't much going on upstairs until they start moving around. And so that's an answer in naturalism. We can sort of draw a line, and we got to draw a line in the sand and say, this is, that's where we do it. Peter Sweetus, doorknob head.
We got some hilarious comments over here.
Jesus was such a Pete's. Okay. Okay. We'll start over, dude. We'll start over for you.
That's the wonderful thing about this show is it's fractal. Any segment of this show looks just like any other segment. So
exactly. Oh, JimBob, JimBob.
I like JimBob.
Yeah, we will come up with many names for him because breakfast tacos. I think
breakfast tacos. Just watching a tacos video earlier.
Okay, no, fucking breakfast tacos. There's 2 different things, and yesterday I had this guy in and I let him say a whole bunch of egregious things.
I think we went over and above trying to stick with the ideas.
And we were listening to his ideas. But now when you have a person spewing this kind of fucking venom constantly for 3 hours on the channel, he deserves to be attacked basically on his substance, on his integrity. Don't tell me that we should not be, or that we should be, just treat him as an academic. He's not a fucking academic. He doesn't measure up there either. So I mean, if the guy is just thick-headed and dumb, what are you going to do, at the end of the day? So
He's fleecing.
Yeah, so I can see both sides to that. I mean, it depends on the context, and it depends on your intentions as far as why you're engaging with this person. And if the person's just going to be abusive and gaslighting the whole time, and you just behave well the whole time, then they're just getting away with it. They're walking all over you.
Yeah.
They're still going to market it later, which is the real reason they're there in the first
And that's what we were apologizing to the audience earlier, because we were trying to let things slide and trying to get back to the argument.
We were doing exactly what you recommend, and we did math.
And a lot of our audience was offended that we didn't get on it more. So it was a very difficult situation.
Yeah, it's a tough line, and I'm going to go after JimBob's integrity, and I will also go after the inadequacy of his philosophy, and I will also go after any ideas that he tries to present, because every now and then he rubs two words together and he actually says something, and those are the things that really interest me, and those are the things that interest you. Okay.
And one of the reasons that I don't, well, maybe something slipped here and there, but I try not to cuss on my channel, is because advice I got from folks like Paula Gia and many others, that if you cuss, believers are going to tune you out. And you go onto a Christian channel and you get cussed out. And it's like, it's really difficult when we're making this effort and then it's just thrown in your face. It's really hard. It's really hard.
Yeah, JimBob could have been perfectly reasonable on this channel. He could have shut his fucking mouth and been polite, because we were polite to him. We didn't come out of the gate attacking him. At least I can't remember doing that. I just like, okay, let's talk. I wanted to have a calm conversation with him.
He was more worried about a few things that were said in the chat. And it's like, well, and here's the guy telling everybody, boo-hoo, grow a spine. It's like, what are you looking at the chat for? You know?
And he's being a little snowflake. I don't know.
It's often a catch-22 anyways in these situations.
It was.
It's like with Matt Dillahunty, he's one of my favorite examples, because on one hand, all that anger does is feed the idea of the stereotypical angry atheist. But on the other hand, if he's always civil with them and overly patient with them, they're going to walk all over him. They're going to manipulate and exploit his time and his patience. And in the end, you've still accomplished nothing at all, right? And if you do too much to give courtesy to that behavior, then you're dignifying it, right? You're saying that what they're saying there deserves respect, and when what they're saying and how they're behaving doesn't deserve respect, then you shouldn't give it, right? It's a catch-22, because no matter which side you go with that, you're going to lose some people on that. They're going to think you should have went the other way.
Fetus.
Yeah, I would have aborted that one too. Anyway, let's see. What about the other guy who was spewing venom? Well, yeah, I spewed venom back, and every time he gave me an opportunity, I kind of had fun calling him names for a change. Let's see here. By the way, I want to mention that Breakfast Tacos has an excellent channel and does some excellent work. And I just discovered.
Oh, hey, Jay's in there. Just part of the issue is this community claims to be tallies of marginalized people, but if you're emulating Apologia so that you don't defend Christians, you're centering the bigots, not the marginalized. That's a very valid point, Jay. That's a very valid point.
Yeah, we started this stream apologizing. Please go back and watch it. That we should have stepped up and cut it off sooner, and we made a mistake.
Yeah,
we're not going to have him on again and talk to him again. So
yep. So Apologia picks and chooses his subjects, that sort of thing.
Claims to be allies of marginalized people. So yeah.
Well, it's like we were pointing out, though, it's very difficult on who you can talk to, because we expected him to at least halfway behave when he was on somebody else's channel.
Yeah.
And we gave him the benefit of the doubt. So I think we tried, he failed, and we let things slide, trying to get to the discussion, and then other folks were joining too. So we had Leo and Mark and everybody joining in too. So it was kind of a start over, and then he got another chance to say things and make fun of them. And
yeah, let's insulting people in communities like that is just further isolating atheists from those communities. Okay, that's true, and there's a tactic there, but not everybody has to be like this accommodating, and I'm not. I tend to go hard on these guys at some point, especially if they're okay, so I got Jay telling me I should be an ally of the marginalized, and I should really come down on this guy and just let him have it and kick his ass out, right? And I got Breakfast Tacos saying, oh no, you want to be nice to him because you're going to alienate.
Jay just said these things happen, and he's glad we addressed it. So
what the fuck are you going to do?
Yeah, we are reaching out, everybody that was, offended in the chat, we apologize. We were really trying to, Mike invited him on. So we were trying and trying and trying. Okay.
Yeah.
And it didn't work. And we learned our lesson. We're not going to talk to him again.
Right.
Sumami is the new Batman of this channel. It used to be Stupid Horror Energy, but she hasn't been around for a while. So Sumami is our new Batman.
A new Batman.
New Batman.
And Sumami was absolutely right. So
yes. Let's see. Bimbob Bimbob Hang. Oh, this Andrew, he's the worst piece of shit I have ever listened to. God. When he debates feminists and like they put him in the same room with a woman without handcuffing him to the table, and that just offends me. I mean, normally like Hannibal Lecter, right? They bring him in and they got him fucking handcuffed and chained up. They let this guy run free in the room with normal thinking people who are smaller than him, and I think that's very offensive. They should always handcuff him and put a face mask on him before they bring Andrew Wilson out. Don't you think?
Well, sure.
Yeah. Okay. Christ, righteous Mary. What do we got?
I find myself divided about the issues too. I do. Like when I watch somebody like, not Drew. Man, I can't think of his name now. There's one guy that I watch, a popular atheist, where he's super civil to the people that he interviews. William Lane Craig and anybody else he interviews. And then for the sake of being civil, he handles them with kid gloves. He's so respectful that he accidentally ends up dignifying their grift. But at the same time, I don't like it when Matt Dillahunty goes to extremes either. There's no pleasing me. I'm never happy with either extreme, which is exactly why
Alex O'Connor? Yeah, Logan. He guessed before me.
Yes, Alex O'Connor. Right.
Oh that interview with Craig when Craig was smiling that obsequious, vacant smile, and O'Connor was going, well, it seems like there were a lot of innocent children that were killed, and blah, and blah, that would be unjust to them, and blah, blah, blah. And he was just smiling, going, oh, yes, that would be so bad. Yeah, it's so bad. I just wanted to pummel the guy. Look what religion has done to his brain. Hey,
everyone, Batman is in the chat. Batman's in the chat.
Maybe he has a worm, like RFK Jr., but it's sure eating his brain out. Anyway, I'm sorry. I had to do an outburst there. I apologize, James.
Oh no, don't apologize to me. I mean, my point was made, and you're spot on. There's still great conversation happening in the chat there. Hunter Biden's laptop says if something happens to one of us, is Jim Bob going to help us? Is Inspiring Philosophy going to donate to help? Our marginalized friends will always be there for us. Let's not forget that.
Yeah. So
Right.
breakfast tacos is responding to Tsunami. They should stop that shit too, but they're not going to stop that shit. They're making their money on that shit and they're promoting it. They 4,500 views yesterday where they went off on us and called us all sorts of names, and they go off on this whole fucking when you hear them talk about women is just fucking cringy as shit ever. And I'm supposed to just let that happen and without insulting this guy. Plus, his philosophy is so fucking weak, breakfast tacos, that like I say, when I showed it to a professor, that's all he could do is laugh at the guy and sputter. I mean, he didn't even know where to begin to attack such a horrible idea. I mean, you guys did a good job, and Logic did a good job, and I think I've done a pretty good job. I don't know. But yeah, it ain't going to stop on both sides. It isn't going to stop just because you're nice to them. You're just going to get your ass kicked over and over again. Attack the ideas. I know it's a lofty ideal, attacking the ideas, but
Yeah, Hank is saying, "Oh, the crew outnumbered and everything," and it's like, no. It was 1-on-1. We were letting it go 1-on-1. There was no ganging up on him. That's baloney. I didn't say a word. I didn't say a word so much. Mike muted me and forgot about me. So that's how little I chimed in. Okay, I don't hear about no ganging up.
I would have been the wrong guy to do the interview. I would have been so civil and so polite and so accommodating that I would have dignified the grift, and I would have felt bad about it later, right? If I had done exactly what Tacos is saying somebody should have done, which is what I would have done, I would have felt dirty about it later because they would have gotten away with too much and I would have been dignifying it.
Well, I would have talked to him just on the philosophy if he had kept his goddamn mouth shut and hadn't been so insulting to everybody. I muted him before he said some really bad shit. And then I didn't when he managed to get it out because it was like a fucking it was a clown show actually when everybody got going. It was horrible.
Oh, hello, Hank. How are you today?
Yeah. Berating people just pushes them deeper into their hole. Well, the public figures. What's that, James? Go ahead.
No, finish. Sorry. BS asked a question. I was reading it. Go ahead.
Okay, berating people just pushes them deeper into their hole. There's no hope for Jim Bob. He's making money. He's a public figure. There's no hope for the public figures. And yes, you can attack them based on their integrity. That is a big part of who we are as human beings. We come with our morals on our sleeve. We are meant to be, moral all over the place. And when these guys don't do that, you are perfectly right in calling them out, especially with the kind of shit that's going on his channel.
And when I was on his channel, I behaved.
Okay. Now you wanted to. Okay, I'm behind here. It's not the same tsunami. Breakfast tacos.
I know the guy was an idiot and everything and what he was saying and stuff. And I behaved when I went on his channel. I mean, it was just coming over here and doing his shtick of shut up and all. And it's like, you're not on, you're on somebody else's channel. It's just beyond disgusting. I mean, have some freaking basic manners, man. I mean, you're a grown man. You don't have enough manners. That's like when people say, oh, this and that about church or something. Like, if I went to a church, I'm not going to be running my mouth, insulting people or anything. There's probably a reason I'm there. There's a wedding or a funeral or something or whatever. And I'm not going to say things just because I'm in a church, because I have some freaking manners, Gosh.
Right. Well, I mean, at some point, I think his behavior became so bad, we probably should have just removed him, kept him removed, and then had our own discussion. I think that probably would have been better.
Yeah, that is a great ideal, breakfast tacos, and that's how you run your channel. And I run mine a little differently. So anyway, let's see. You can't.
And I like to think that I'll have a civil discourse with anybody. Like I say, when I've gone on other channels, even when they were insulting me, I let it slide and I behaved. So I do give it an effort. Okay.
Right.
But there are a few people that I just can't stand. I'm sorry. Just the way it is.
Yeah, they would. If Jim Bob and his clan had their way, okay, it would be a patriarchy, and we wouldn't let women vote, and they pretty much made that clear. And we would take care of the little women, right? Because we're bigger, stronger males. And the other thing he would do is he would make force the idea of the day, right? The greater force. And the problem with that is that if you take all the men in the world, okay, and you divide them up into who's bigger and who's smaller, you're going to end up with a fucking gradient. And if you draw the line somewhere and you take all the small men in the world and let all the big men attack them, that's the kind of thinking that they're employing. And that, I don't know if that's exactly a Nazi idea, kind of, because they did it with force, right? But I mean, it certainly isn't an idea we want in this fucking country. I mean, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, see now and No in the chat there. He's a theist. We do not agree on a lot of things. But the other day I went on his channel and we talked about Bigfoot and we had a good time and we had a civil discussion and we didn't call each other names or anything. It was amazing.
Yeah.
And, we don't agree on a lot of this, especially theology. And I made it very clear that, I wasn't a believer and everything. And he didn't call me a dummy or anything. So how about that?
Who was that you went on?
It's See Now and No.
Oh, okay.
It's over there on my chat.
Yeah, I've had good talks with Christians. I used to have good talks with Sal Cordova, until he
once upon a time, until that one day.
Yeah, until they just have to say, they just have to be a jerk because they get cornered or something. It's all right.
I can't remember how I insulted him. I said something about him indicating that he wasn't exactly intellectually hitting a home run, and he got really offended by that.
And of course, Atheist of the Month here was also called a troll by the same person.
Right.
So this person didn't change, okay? This person was Atheist of the Month. Thanks for participating in the chat, to being a troll because Dave didn't change. I haven't. You can ask my wife.
Right.
I don't change much. Okay. So
breakfast tacos. You are a saint. You are a saint. We are not. I am not a saint.
I mean, I get what he's saying. I'm not saying I disagree with it. It's just that there's got to be more nuance than that, right? Like I get both sides of it.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm going to attack just his ideas, breakfast tacos, then I absolutely cannot have him in the conversation, because you heard what he did yesterday.
I try to put work into my videos and check their claims, and it's the only time I attack people is people who I think are taking advantage of people by grifting them and stuff, and I will call them a grifter.
Andrew Cumming asks a question.
Oh, where the hell am I in chat? Okay, I'm going to have to skip a bunch of chat, guys. I'm way the fuck behind. Where's that?
He asks, is there a difference between giving a platform to someone like Kent Hovind versus someone like Jim Bob? Where do you draw the line, basically?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I wouldn't give a platform to Kent Hovind either, because he's nothing more than a wind-up doll that spews the narrative, and the narrative is what the poison is. And back, basically countering that narrative. I don't know how you get to these guys that buy into that kind of narrative. One day,
I wouldn't talk to him, but I wouldn't knock other people who would talk to him and debate him and address his arguments, because I can't. I also think you can't ignore them too much.
Yeah. Like I was a Rush Limbaugh fan back in the year 2000. Okay, not that long ago, and I listened to Rush Limbaugh for years, and that's all I listened to. I listened to conservative talk radio, and I had my attitude about immigrants and everything. And there was a day I was on 102nd Street, Nicollet Avenue in Bloomington, Minnesota, and I was listening to Rush Limbaugh, and I was driving home, and Rush was defending Republicans for doing something that was exactly counter to all of the things that he said Republicans should stand for. And I realized that Rush Limbaugh was a sellout motherfucker, and that he would defend Republicans just because they're called Republicans. And I was at a stop sign, and I remember the cognitive dissonance just fucking blowing my mind up. And that was the beginning of my transition from being a Republican to never. Like, I'll go in and look at the ballot, and if it says Republican, it's like, nope, 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 nope.
Oh, Bill Barr said Trump is dangerous, and he's basically insane, and he just completely badmouthed him. He said there's no way he should be anywhere near the White House.
I got to step
And they
away
said,
from it.
are you going to vote for him if he's in the election? And he said, oh, yeah.
Do come back, Scott.
He's going to vote for him. It's like, oh, what? Okay. Okay. Party loyalty. Going to vote for him anyway.
Yeah. Okay, Star Song. Right in the middle of the Bible Belt. Oh, my God. I couldn't go to AA meetings if I lived down south. I don't think I'd have to find something else.
AJ's looking for a link, Mike.
I think AJ is here. AJ.
Okay, there it is. Okay.
Yep.
Hello.
Yeah, and your debate had a bunch of juicy stuff that I'd like to go over too, but particularly the scientific method and all that stuff. And it's like, oh my God.
Yeah, I thought it was very funny how he asked me for my he asked me to say what the scientific method was, and then later on he says that's not the scientific method, and I say, okay, you tell me, what do you think it is? And he gives almost exactly the same thing I said, just with some changed words here or there.
Yeah. Well, he was sort of hinting that he had drank the Kent Hovind poison and the AIG poison, that it's observational science, that sort of thing. And like what they don't get is the scientific method involves a number of different, like he was talking about what happens if you don't find the fossils that you're looking for. Like what would have happened if they didn't find Tiktaalik? Well, they didn't for 2 years. They kept looking, right? And then they found it, and that finding it confirmed that the timeline that they had and everything else was correct. We knew that there had to be a transition. Okay, and they figured out roughly where that transition would have happened, and then they went ahead and found it. And the other thing he was trying to hint at is it's almost like he's listened to all the creationist tapes, but he can't pony up the actual things like Donnie can, with his big long list of fucking PowerPoint notes. He was hinting at that other fossil that we found 15 million years later that also looked I think like a early transition from water to land, right? Or with 15 million years later. And he was hinting at that. He was trying to say, well, what if you know what I mean? You remember the part of the conversation where he was saying, what if they found a bunch of false things that didn't support their hypothesis? And you were looking at him like he was like talking like an idiot, right? You remember that part? And it's like, yeah, okay, if you find, but if you find something that absolutely contradicts your hypothesis, then you have a problem. If you simply don't find what your hypothesis predict, I don't know what he was talking about.
Yeah.
Maybe polystrate trees? Was he referring to, because he was talking about things that were found in newer layers, that should have been older. I don't know what the fuck.
Were you talking to me? Because I got distracted for a second. I was reading the side chat. I don't know what the hell's going on over there.
Oh, what is going on over there? Trump is barred from.
Justin saying wavelength is 2 subs short of 100. So if you aren't subbed over at wavelength there, you should be.
Yeah, that brings me to another point.
I asked him for a link. Justin, drop your link. I gave you a wrench.
As far as I can tell, it seemed like Sumami says that people shouldn't platform Jim Bob. I think.
Yeah. Well,
we weren't platforming.
No.
The Jim Bob. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
that's the line we were trying to. Yeah.
He's already got 15K subs. I mean, he's sort of got his own platform already.
Yeah, he he basically sniped my stream yesterday, and he got 4,500 views, and I got 750. So
Yeah. I almost hate to say it, Speed, but that was not a good stream for you. It was really making me cringe, the shit you were saying. I'm just going to be flat out honest. Like, I loved what Leo was saying. I think you should have just let Leo and JimBob go back and forth, because I don't know.
No,
Like,
Leo
when you said that don't say that word, that's offensive, and he said, "What do you mean, mechanism? What did you? I didn't understand that part. Like, what were you talking? What
mechanism in biology is just like
But
mechanism.
why was that offensive?
Okay, because I'm offended by it.
Was that just a meme?
What's that?
I'm asking you. Was that just a joke?
Yeah, I was making a joke, sort of, or I was
Okay.
making it bigger than it is. It was intellectually offensive to me to talk about mechanism, because mechanism is a wonderful way to teach biology, but it's not a wonderful way to understand what's happening in evolution. Okay, mechanism really doesn't apply at all.
Well,
Mechanism always makes us think about cogs and gears and pathways that are
yes.
perfectly etched. That isn't what's happening in your cells right now. There are so many things happening in your cells right now that have absolutely nothing to do with keeping them alive, but it may someday have something to do with keeping them alive.
It's very interesting that you mentioned like gears and cog speed, because I noticed watching the stream that JimBob, when he read out the definition of mechanism, he intentionally left out part of it, because he said a system of parts working together, but the rest of the definition says a system of parts working together in a machine, a piece of machinery.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's a mechanism.
And I told him, I was like, that's dishonest as fuck. You intentionally read half of the definition. And then he replied like, well, look, there's a part 2. And I'm like, yeah, but that's irrelevant. Part 2 doesn't,
Yeah,
like,
right.
why'd you, because I was asking him, why did you leave out part of the definition? And he was like, oh, well, there's a part 2.
Yeah.
I was like, that's not an answer.
Yeah.
We got Justin up over 100. Thanks, everybody. And keep subbing.
Yeah. Most of the things that you found that I said that made you cringe, it's because you don't really understand totally my rendition of physicalism, which is a little bit eccentric, but it's not something that a lot of philosophers disagree with. And I talked to actual philosophers about this, and the problem that I saw with Leo, and the problem I see with not so much Mark Reed, but with Leo, is that they go down avenues that allow them to be attacked because they're not strictly adhering to physicalism, and they will talk about things that don't hash out and make sense. And granted, I have not presented my entire case for my physicalism, and that may and I also I'm a little bit of a devil. Like, I will say things like, "Oh, that's offensive." I will play games, right, and play the fool, sort of, because I'm that kind of a guy. I've always done that. I've always said things that make people stop and say, "Oh, fuck, what did he just say?" Like,
Yeah.
it's an illusion or whatever. And but I can support the shit I say. It's just that my rhetoric is often gets me in trouble, and I know that. But I like that, right? I want to throw that wrench in the gear, right? So,
yeah, and you weren't taking him seriously. Oh, shout out to Breakfast Tacos in the chat. And I will also say that I love Sumami's videos, and I'll just leave it at that. Anyway, so Sumami. Tacos. We did a review of the first part of my debate with JimBob, and then me and Aiden. You know Aiden, right? The Canadian. Yeah, we just on Discord we watched the whole debate last night, and we didn't record it or anything, but the review that we did is on Taco's channel, but we didn't get that far just because it's tough. It was tough being in that debate, but rewatching it again and again is mentally exhausting. I was telling him and other people who I've talked about this debate with, that I was so mentally exhausted by the end of the debate and was so dumbfounded by how stupid his questions were that I literally could not form a cogent argument. My mind was a blank.
Yeah, I say, yeah, he attacked you like on things that you weren't prepared for with Jim Bob. If you'd known more about him, I don't even think that would have helped, because he's quite good at what he does, right? He knows how to run this fucking narrative for his audience, and he did it yesterday on my channel, and it looks like he's gaining points, but he gains no points at all. He never lands a blow against, and like, he didn't land any blows against anything you said. That's all he did was gish gallop around the fact. Like, he went he'd go to a meta thing. Yeah. Okay, Mr. Anderson yesterday did that T video. And what he was talking about is when the creationist or the fool is about to hit the wall, they will throw you a red herring off to the right or left and make you take that turn so that they don't hit the wall. You know, you can't bring them home because they're controlling the show. And he was controlling you with memes and all kinds of shit. He was controlling you with the way he rolled his eyes. I mean, he was doing this whole fucking thing. You don't stand a chance on that channel. Mr. Anderson was the only person that probably survived over there that I've seen. I don't know anybody else that's done well over on JimBob's channel. Anyway, but no, you did pretty goddamn good, and you got a few zingers in, and there was what was the one that everybody called out? Can't remember. You got a good shot in here and there. So anyway.
Am I muted?
No,
am I muted?
I'm not sure. I think my sound dropped out.
He's early in the debate, he asked me for like the ratio of confirmed predictions that had come true for paleontologists versus mistakes they'd made, and I said, well, I don't know that statistic off the top of my head, and he's like, oh, that's convenient. And then later on,
I know
in the debate, I turned it around on him, and my viewers loved that.
Yeah, that was a good one. Yeah, that's convenient. Yeah.
Yeah, because and you know, when I did it to him, or when he did it to me, it was based on a bullshit premise, because you can't compare the way that they found Tiktaalik to the way that paleontologists normally find fossils, because usually paleontologists will go to dig sites, they'll go to areas that they suspect fossils are, and they'll dig and they'll find what they find. But Neil Shubin, they knew where exactly to look based on 3 locations that they narrowed it down based on cross-confirming sites that Tiktaalik might be based on the years, how many millions of years ago it was alive, versus areas that would be exposed to the topsoil.
Yeah.
And that's just not how fossils are normally found. That's why it's so special. It's an outlier.
Right. It was an outlier, yeah, and it was just it was a wonderful moment for paleontology and for evolutionary biology. We knew there was a transition, I mean, there had to be. And the transition, like from fin to limb, is absolutely incredible to study at an embryological level, to find out what exactly is happening in the embryo to develop those differences in limbs. It's actually a very small amount of mutations that actually change a fin into a limb, which is pretty cool. And there's a lot of interesting science around that. But yeah, that was But he had nothing. He was sort of like making a gesture towards some AIG bullshit that he had heard about in the past. And that's all he knows. He knows nothing about science at all. You can tell he knows nothing about science when you try to talk to him about physicalism, right? He has no idea how the scientific mind would work, and come up with reasonable fucking conclusions. And it's really obvious that he's one of these people that do not think in a sciencey way, I guess is how you could put it. That's one of the things that's frustrating me about him. Anyway.
Yeah.
Andrew
I
had
loved what
around.
Leo was saying to him, though.
You see, Andrew had a round with JB.
Andrew did?
That's what it said in the chat.
Oh shit! Did I? No,
He did?
No, he's not talked to Jim Bob, I don't think.
Not yet.
Oh, okay.
Lots of people have been debating him, though. It's like everybody wants a piece of this guy.
Yeah, and yeah, I don't.
Said I tried to have a conversation with JB at one point.
It was like biting into a rotten fish. I had my piece of him and I spit it out. I will not talk to the man again.
Yeah, and Andrew says he has.
Oh, where have you, Andrew? Can you give us a link?
It was a while ago, he said.
I need a link. God damn it. You know I'm about my link.
Curiosity killed the meow meow.
Yeah. God damn it. Yeah, that would be interesting. But his method of reasoning is just so narrative based and so showman. You know, it's all showmanship and but he's real slippery. He'll go to the meta thing, like, you know, when you get him on something, he'll say, "Well, how do you come to knowledge? You know, if you're an atheist, you know, he'll go to the meta discussion, right? And you're like, what? Or like yesterday, Leo and Mark Reed and him were having a conversation about, are you saying that rationality is not happening here, or that we're not going to presuppose rationality before we have an argument?" And Jim Bob slipped all over the place on that. That was the discussion. I mean, if you're going to throw rationality out of the thing, you may as well throw out the fact that we understand each other's words, you know, and say, "Oh, we can't communicate." And that's what happens to solipsism. When the solipsist starts to win the argument, you slowly disappear, and you got to ask the guy, who are you arguing with? Because, you know, you're proving to me that, you know, you're the only thing in the world. Your mind is the only thing in the world. Who exactly are you arguing with? You're starting to sound like you're batshit. Anyway. Holy shit, he did what?
Star Song said R.N. Ra has a video up. Religious Identity and Politics is the title.
Okay. Yeah, he kept every time I'd say something, he'd say head injury or meds or whatever. I know. So,
Oh, yeah. Like he called me the R word, and like it was annoying because I assumed you watched the whole debate, but he was. I was
wouldn't let anybody call
going
me
out of my way to be nice, and he was just increasingly more and more hostile and just insulting me until eventually I just got pissed off and told him "fuck you" and left. And then I came back on and just was like, "Oh, I didn't." I basically just came back on and said like, "Oh, I didn't mean to lose my temper." And then I plugged my channel, and his side chat was saying that I was a good sport. They wanted me to come back on.
Yeah.
Jim Bob says I'm welcome back anytime, which I don't know. And at the very beginning of the debate, like I don't mean to hog all the talk time, but I asked him flat out because I literally went to that debate blind. I hadn't seen any of his debates. I didn't know what his positions were, other than some assumptions I can make. I just know that he debated Grayson and Mr. Anderson, and those are my friends. And he was doing a video about Mr. Anderson, or a stream, talking mad shit, saying really nasty things about him. And so I was like, I want a piece of this guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I went on there and I asked him, "Are you a Christian?" He said yes. I said, "Are you a young earther?" And he said,
he wouldn't answer.
Yeah, he wouldn't answer. He said, I don't know. Like he wouldn't answer one way or the other if he's like thinks the universe is, you know, billions of years old or thousands. He wouldn't answer that. And he's also a flat earther. I also am pretty sure that he's an anti-vaxxer.
Yeah.
He's an anti-LGBT bigot. He's probably a Nazi.
Yeah, probably.
He is.
So that video.
Also, his just one more thing. His art style that he draws with is fucking hideously ugly. Yeah, I'm done.
Yeah, it is bad. So Evolution Boy Response is the one where Andrew was talking to Jim Bob. So, and that was on Made by Jim Bob. Oh my God, you went on there, Andrew. Andrew, you'll just subject yourself to anything. Andrew still talks to Donnie sometimes. I don't know. Anyway.
Donnie just puts me in a corner every time I comment.
Nitty, is that true? He believes the moon landing is fake? Oh my. I don't know. Is that true? Holy shit. Let's see. He is so okay. Basically the epitome of science and philosophy. Yeah.
Church.
Yeah, buys in all the bullshit.
Yeah, he sells books of his shitty drawings, and it's all about Bill Gates vaccinating people and saying Buzz Aldrin saying that, oh, I didn't go to the moon. Oh, and you know, what he said at the very end of my stream is that the planet's not overcrowded, we're not destroying the planet, and that we have an unlimited amount of oil and natural resources.
Yeah, they think, and then he was talking about oil from dinosaur bones. It's like,
well, I said dinosaur bones like sort of as a figure of speech, but I also said algae. And algae is where we get oil from.
And the
but he latched on to me saying dinosaur bones.
Yeah, swampy jungles, and it takes a long fucking time for that. I mean, it's like we have an unlimited supply of oil, they think, and God forbid if we do, because we're going to put it out in the atmosphere, right, at an incredible rate.
Yeah, like, you know, and even if I do, like, even if I made a mistake and misspoke and I told him if I misspoke and said, you know, something wrong, that dinosaur bones aren't where we get oil from, maybe it's because you were yelling in my ear to shut the fuck up and calling me the R word, and maybe I got distracted.
Right.
Or even if I do think that we get oil from dinosaur bones, that's nothing compared to his moronic beliefs.
Yeah. Every time he did that to me, I just went off on him and started calling him names, and I kind of had fun with it, to tell you the truth, because it was an opportunity for me to say nasty things to people and be somewhat justified. I don't get that very often. I tried that once with my wife, and she punched me. Fucking
I mean, if somebody on my channel called me a Republican, I'd boot him right away.
Yeah.
See, I was going to boot Jim Bob way earlier, but Speed just kept wanting to talk to him.
Oh, come on. You're blaming... Oh, Scott, we got to talk.
Yeah, you did. You did want to talk to him. He was calling people names, telling them to shut up, and a few times when I muted him, I was about to kick him out, but then you didn't want me to. So
usually my co-host has my back.
Not this
Jesus, not this time.
I don't know. I was going to mention it to you. I was going to mention it to you in private, but I didn't. I did it now.
Well, that's what we were saying. We were trying to just go, yeah, F you too, and back to the argument. You know what I mean?
Yeah, whatever.
And maybe we, went a little too long with it.
Yeah, but
that was our mistake.
Mark Reed and Leo wanted a piece of them, and our channel was a very good place for that to happen, I think, rather than having them go out there, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
To me, if it never gets to that point where they're calling names or whatever, that's fine with me. Go ahead and obviously have that debate, but I just don't want people to be that disrespectful. If you had the same conversation but at my house and
oh god, I would have
called people names like that, you would have been booted out and might have had some buckshot in your ass.
Out
of my house, and I felt really, really bad keeping them in, and I don't think I want things to get that foul just because.
Let's call it an exception. It was an exception. It was an exception.
Yeah.
Let's not do it again.
Yeah. You got it out of your system, Speed, and you know that I don't want to say I love you. I sort of like you. I got my start on this channel. And Amy Newman's channel on this channel. I used to stream every single day on this channel, and me and Speed and I feel bad. Scott, we went to Faithless Forum together.
Yeah.
And Speed said that look at him. He's going to be a great YouTuber. Look how motivated he is, and it was true.
Yeah.
And look at me now.
Yeah. You did well.
That was when I hit 2,000 subs that weekend.
I've never seen a more serious person at that.
Yeah,
thing.
you were focused. You were, and you cut out. You were real efficient in cutting out that time to do the interviews of other streamers and stuff.
Yep.
So
Yeah, I cut out my interview with Erica and put it up as his own video on my channel because she's blown up recently, and I want to try and leech off some of her popularity. Like, hey, look, I talked to her. Can I have some of her subs?
Yeah.
I mean, I know I have some subs, but she's got over 100,000. Come on. How
Erica
did that
was-
happen? When did that happen? She was at like
Erica was-
10K that weekend.
Erica was on my channel when she was smaller than me.
Yeah, she used to collab with me. I mean, we've done collabs. She used to collab with everybody, and then just out of nowhere, you know, she blows up, and now she got married, and I don't know if she's still working at it as a teacher's assistant, but she's going to school for a PhD. So I don't know how she manages the time, but I told her, you know, if you ever if like 25 years from now you have a free day, like I told her, like it would mean a lot if we collab. And she said that, you know, she said that she sort of seemed like she replied to my message, which I was pretty excited about. So
She's busy as hell.
yeah. But maybe like in a decade, I'm going to have a collab with her, and you guys are going to see my channel explode.
Yeah.
You just wait.
In a decade.
Just wait.
you just wait. Someday
Well,
I'll be
you
written
want
in the stars.
I mean, how long ago was Faithless Forum? It was during the pandemic.
Yeah.
It was like 3 years ago.
3 years ago already. Holy
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Time flies when you're.
I wish we could have another one. It's.
I know. Well, they had the one up in Indiana that Amy Newman and
Yeah.
Oz were hosting, and Oz was at Faithless Forum. I remember at the after party, he smuggled in a whole bottle of Crown Royal.
So Jay, I put the link out there as you requested.
Yeah, so did I.
Yeah.
We actually did it right at the same time.
Really? Okay. No. Anyway, Jay asked for a StreamYard link, I think.
How's your missing mod art working out, AJ?
I don't know what happened to AJ.
What
AJ got
happened to AJ?
distracted again. He got distracted again.
Hey Jay, how's
There
it
it
going?
is.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Sorry for the delay. We have so many people on today that I didn't even notice the tile.
No.
I
no
thought you guys were
worries.
saying AJ, but you were saying Hey Jay.
Yeah, hey Jay. Yeah.
No, I asked how you liked the missing mod paint
Yeah,
business.
I caught that. Missing Mod, me and her have a love-hate relationship. But she's a good artist, you know, and so am I.
Missing
But,
Mod is a young earther, right?
She's a flat earther.
Flatter. Oh my god. Oh my god.
She's a young earther. I'm just gonna say yes because she's a very strong Hoven fan.
So Jay, am I an asshole?
So I'm not here
could've just
to
said
call anybody names.
You could have just said no.
No, Mike, I don't think you're an asshole, at all. But I do understand where, people's disappointment comes from in these situations. And there's just some things I think we should think about. So one thing that's kind of become important to me is this notion of counter spaces. The idea that within larger institutions or larger communities, people that are marginalized tend to find certain spaces where they feel safe and supported, and those spaces are important to them in sort of counteracting harmful narratives, right? And what happens for a lot of people is, just like a lot of us, they don't just come to YouTube for entertainment. They actually get a sense of community, they get a sense of knowing people, they build a real community, and it becomes an important part of their social life. And for lack of a better way to put it, they make friends.
Yeah.
And you get a feeling of like, okay, I know who my friends are, I know where my friends congregate, I know where I'm good to go, and I know places where I may hang out from time to time and interact for entertainment or get into the muck, but I don't consider this like the part of my community. I don't necessarily feel safe here.
Here?
And so part of that is when we have these interactions with people on the other side, you have to realize that there's an element of exposure that happens, and there's a real price to be paid for that exposure.
Yep.
So part of the way you can think of it is mission creep. I sometimes, like to use more plain language, like infiltration. But you'll notice things like, for instance, since they're sort of the bigots of the Nazis of the month, Andrew Wilson and Jim Bob.
Yeah.
Because they're two peas in the pod.
Right.
For those that don't know, Jim Bob is more or less Andrew Wilson's sidekick.
Yeah.
Did you see his debate with Lauren Chen the other day?
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. It's cringy. Anyway.
When you think about Andrew Wilson and Jim Bob, first the question is, how do we even know these people? For a lot of us, it stems from Andrew Wilson essentially debating Matt Dillahunty at the modern day debates events and going full mask off.
Debating in quotes.
I didn't know
debating in quotes. Yeah.
Me too. Yeah.
You know what I said when that happened? I said that if Dillahunty's wife had been black or African American, and Andrew Wilson or Papa Fascist, which is his real name,
his
really,
handle, on
Big
Twitter,
Papa Fascist, If it had been that way, and he said nothing but racist jokes and shit the whole time, nobody would have supported him as openly as they did, or maybe they would. I would like to think they wouldn't, but you know what I mean. Like, or if he had gone up there and used like a hard R, like I don't think. But it's still culturally accepted to be transphobic in our society today. Unfortunately, it's still. I mean, it's getting better, but that was one thing that I realized, is that how many people support this open transphobe, and it was very kind of saddening to see that the level of support he got and donations.
Okay, Jay, you weren't done yet.
No, that's cool. We can have a conversation.
It's good to see you, Jay. It's been a while.
Yeah, you too, AJ. You too. It's actually good to see all you guys. We all know each other and have history and
we old friends. We old friends now.
For all you guys.
While I got you here, really quick, I don't want to sidetrack the discussion at all. Jay, I've said it on my channel before, but I've never said it to you directly. I am very, very sorry. I sincerely, humbly apologize for the way that I treated you a year ago. It was not called for. It wasn't right. It's not justifiable. I was having a bad day. I was in a bad place. I shouldn't even have had that stream running. Made a lot of dumb decisions that day. But how I behaved that day wasn't okay, and I just want to say that publicly.
I appreciate that, James. It's all good.
Me and Jay
catch up offline. We can chat.
We had some disagreements, and I went on his show, and we worked it out, and now we're best friends.
I remember that.
No, we bonded over wrestling.
That's my go-to. If you can even just pretend to like wrestling for 5 minutes, you can get in my good graces pretty easily.
There's been some ups and downs, but we're still all good, right?
Yeah. For sure.
I mean,
I wish more people would do that type of thing, though. I would like to see more of that, like reaching across. Like, if you have problems with somebody, it might just be a misunderstanding, but I think people are so isolated in our sort of technological society today. I think people would prefer to just talk shit on the internet instead.
So Jay, you would probably say I shouldn't do again what I did yesterday, but what else would you have me do?
I kind of want to step back, right? Because to be honest, Mike, like, we all do these things, and we all have channels, and I think everybody has certainly the right, you know, to handle their channels and do what they want, right? And I also think I do believe we need like a diversity of approaches. So I don't think it's useful to tell people, hey, I think you should or shouldn't do this. I just like to say, here's things people think about, right? And you know, I don't any of these people that you can say, oh, you should interact with this person or that person or whatever, like most of us have interacted with them, right? Or seen somebody interact with them in a way that we liked or supported, right? So, you know, I try not to be that cut and dry, but let me just kind of finish this line of thinking. I think once that Matt Dillahunty debate happened, right, a lot of people recognized what Andrew Wilson did was wrong, and they didn't support it. They thought it was bad, right? But if you listen to a lot of the dialogue in the community around it, there wasn't a whole lot of, oh, that was the right thing to do, you know. Oh, first of all, I just want to say quickly, I think Matt and Arden, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, I think they're just domestic partners. I don't think they're married, and I keep hearing that said, and somebody's corrected me about that recently. I'm not sure if they're married. But nevertheless, I thought it was kind of romantic, like stand up for your partner, you know? It seemed like instead a lot of people were critical of Matt, right? A lot of people were like, no, he should have put that aside, and he should have finished the debate.
Right. No.
And it would have been better if he actually finished, you know, the debate. And actually, what you notice then is a lot of people did that. In other words, after that happened, they sort of figured, well, I'll show how it really should have been done. Right. And they did what? They started debating Andrew Wilson. So you see, and I don't want to name names, but you see a lot of popular atheist or left like YouTubers that a lot of us follow and know about. They've debated Andrew Wilson lately, either on their channels or on his channels or whatever. And what happens then is these people who are their defenders or their supporters go, oh, hey, look, we found a new community of atheists to interact with and have discussions with and have debates with and essentially antagonize. And so you go from something like MDD, which is probably like, I want to say it's an atheist, it's a debate channel, right? It's a debate channel that we all know about, but don't necessarily feel like it's, I would say, part of our community. Right? It's like a platform, stuff happens on it, we talk about it, but you know, we don't like hang out with MDD people or consider them like friends or anything like that, right? But it creeps. It goes from the MDD circle to YouTube creators that are, say, pretty close to our friend group or, you know, maybe a degree or two away. And all of a sudden they're talking about Andrew Wilson. Now they're talking about Andrew Wilson. Well, here pops up Jim Bob, because Jim Bob's got to defend Andrew Wilson. A lot of times he brings Andrew Wilson on wherever he's defending him too, right? And so you see it just get more and more into our spaces. And then what that does is for our marginalized friends who felt safe in our channels and thought they had friends, they now deal with our chats that used to be cool. They're not so cool anymore because we got trolls trying to antagonize us all the time and trying to turn everything into a debate and saying foul stuff in the side chats, right? And then the issue with a lot of it is it's a distraction. At the end of the day, Jim Bob's not a good actor. He's not, there's nothing you can say or educate him on that's gonna change his epistemology. And at the end of the day, to be honest with you, a lot of that stuff doesn't even matter to those guys. Because if you get to the, well, then now what? Well, then now what? Jim Bob isn't here to talk about epistemology. At the end of the day, he's only arguing epistemology because he really wants to argue for his God. And he really only wants to argue for his God because he wants to argue for his worldview of Christian populism. And he really only wants to argue with that because that's his seat, that's his way to do the grievance politics of the anti-woke and the all this stuff. So when you get to that ableism of calling you, the names he called you, and then talking to Steph the way he did, and making the comments towards Sumami and all that, that's what he really wants to do. And then even like there's a lot of weird stuff that happens. So like where you say something, and I mean to say this, like you'll say it innocently, like you'll say, there's bad arguments out there. I'm interested in dealing with the bad arguments. So if he makes the bad arguments, I want to address that. Sometimes when people hear that, what ends up happening in practice feels like, oh, I'm willing to set aside this person's bigotry or disregard this person's bigotry or ignore it. Hey, shh. Keep it under wraps. Don't say anything bigoted on my channel, right? And then as long as they don't say anything bigoted right now in my channel during this conversation, I'm perfectly happy to settle that aside so we can have a philosophical conversation. But as marginalized people in your friend group, we're sitting there like, come on, we know who this person is. Now, why are we doing this? And now I got to deal with all his little defenders in the side chat, and now he's going to be clipping this, and then it becomes this whole thing. And you just see these people encroach on your community.
Right.
And what happens then too is you can't play the numbers anymore. If I'm a black employee and I happen to be the only black employee in my entire workspace, and something that we're doing bothers me and feels insensitive to my culture or whatever, if I bring it up and I have a white colleague go, well, what does everybody else think? What did they just do? Yeah. They just asked a bunch of people who don't share my identity, don't share my perspective, probably don't have any clue as to why what's important to me is even important to me. And then they formed a consensus that like, oh, well, we all thought it was fine, right? And so we have to own the fact that this space in many ways lacks diversity, especially when it comes to who has the channels, who has the numbers, who's on the panel, who's got respect, and all of these things. And so there is going to be a sense in which the dominant culture in these spaces is like, well, it's really important to have the conversations. It's really important that we always sit down with them and that we're nice to them. Because in many ways, the people in a dominant culture who have certain amounts of privilege, that feels okay to them. Yeah. They don't understand what it says about the bigger picture. They don't understand that it feels like our feelings and our issues and our struggles are being set aside so we can have a 3-hour philosophical debate with somebody who doesn't care about the philosophy anyway. Yeah. Right? So that's where some of that comes in.
Jay, I like Jim Bob to me was a prop, okay, because he had a set of bad ideas. And what I'm really interested in on this channel is explaining my version of physicalism, which I think is really solid and really defendable. And so when I see somebody that's, done egregious things philosophically, I seize on him and I get a little obsessed with him. But I think I'm going to make a change in that I want all my moderators to kick these son of a bitches off the channel as soon as they say something like that. Number one, because I didn't give them permission before. And I'm going to probably create a few moderators with superpowers so they can ban people or whatever. So
like what you need, Speed, is to develop some sort of minority report type thing where you can just ban people before they even come on the stream.
Yeah, there you go.
But when I was asking about, we'll get there because Mr. Anderson, I have a lot of things to say.
He's a god.
Yeah. Well, I asked you about saying that a mechanism was offensive because I thought you meant when he said, "Oh, your dictionary must say that men can get pregnant." I thought that's what you were talking about, which was offensive, I think.
What the hell was? I don't remember.
Yeah, that's what he said.
Your dictionary
Because
men can get.
He was slipping in all kind of little dog whistles.
it's
right
it's just a transphobic thing. Like, oh, you think men can, get pregnant? It's like, no, I think that trans men can get pregnant because they still have a uterus.
Oh my God, I don't know what the hell that was about. But my point on mechanism is that I think that any biologist or evolutionary biologist worth his salt today understands that mechanism is a way to teach biochemistry and teach certain cell functions, but that's not really kind of what's going on in the cell. The cell is not a fucking machine.
Yeah. Oh, and Mr. Anderson. Oh, I wanted to say one more thing because I actually am going to run, but I was watching Jim Bob's stream later in the stream. I don't know if he was doing one today, but he was. I could quote him as saying, "Yeah." Because people were talking about how like Andrew Wilson was kind of like a sexist dick to Lauren Chen, even if she's an idiot. But he was saying like you can't even prove why it's wrong to mistreat women. Like he said something like that.
Yeah, hold on. He comes up with he comes up with a cringe moment like every 50 minutes. Yeah.
But I bullied Mr. Anderson into making a YouTube channel, so he is my creation. I am Dr. Frankenstein in this scenario, but yeah, I actually have to run now. But
okay,
yeah, me and Steph are here to fuck shit up.
Two people I definitely want to see are here. All right, let's
okay.
go.
Okay, we want to hear.
I'm here to smooth the waters.
Mr. Anderson was first in queue, so
you know what? I'm
conversation with you.
Let me just say before you start, you better run, AJ.
Yeah, you better.
What?
Okay.
Yeah, I
need
think
to make up with AJ at some point. I don't know how.
Yeah. I think, first of all, I think since Stephanie is here, I said this to you in text earlier, Stephanie, but like,
I really appreciate that.
I just want to say again to, for everybody that like, the level of like poise and grace that you showed in the face of like some serious bigotry was frankly impressive.
Call him a cunt. I mean, give me some.
Yeah. Well, hey, look, you can be mean and poised at the same time.
Oh yes.
Yeah. Grace can be deadly.
Well, I mean, he was calling. Oh, gee, what was he? Was it Dave or Speed that he was calling Helmet Head or something?
Helmet Head.
That's me. That's me. That's me.
Okay. Yeah, look, the guy, like, so I don't know if you guys want to stay focused on like the anti, like the misogyny and the anti-trans stuff, or you want to talk about like, I could give you some thoughts more generally on, how to deal with yahoos like that in the future. But I don't want to monopolize the conversation.
No, you go ahead. You got the floor for,
for as long as you let me. That's fair.
No, for as long as I let you. Yeah.
Yeah. I think like it's kind of like I think of it as kind of like smoking out the snipers and like he loves to like sort of just throw in these little insults and digs at people. And he'll just do that and then like move back to like the quote unquote regular conversation. But like, it's like he lives for those, right? And I think like one of the ways to deal with it, or the first thing you have to do, is sort of just pull this car over and just be like, look, we're going to address this, right? And I'm going to make this uncomfortable for you, because we're going to talk about the fact that you just said some odious crap, and like, say it again, right? And then just be like, so what was your intention, right? Are you trying to hurt my feelings? Are you trying to be provocative? Like, and just kind of like, make it uncomfortable. And then, regardless of what he says, whether he starts, like apologizing or he like doubles down or something, you just kind of look at him and, with silence and derision, and like,
I'm taking
and like if that, and anybody can do that, but like, a moderator can kind of step in and be like, so, look, if you want to continue to have this conversation here on this channel, then there are certain things that you have to do. Like, this is your second warning, right? Like, you will get punted, saying stuff like that's not cool. It's not relevant and it's not cool. So let's focus on what we're talking about here. If I hear that kind of crap again, then like, you're going to get punted, and we're going to talk about you.
Okay,
You know?
and you should definitely pull this car over. Okay, this particular thing. If you do video on it.
Scott did do that a little bit. He was
Yeah.
trying to rein it in, and
Yeah.
you know, but Mike wanted to talk.
Yeah,
so.
I was caught up in the moment in the argument, so I'm sorry.
I mean, look, I think I was saying to Bumblebee before, in a private conversation, that like he's hard to handle, and it's easy to make mistakes even when you're trying your best to try and do the right thing. You can still do the wrong. I say the wrong. Ask my wife. I say the wrong thing all the time.
Oh yeah.
It's easy to screw these things up. And I think just the fact that you're trying your best to be an ally and to stick up for people is like, it's half the battle, right? It's not the whole thing, but it's part of it. And yeah, you do have to be willing to sort of just pull the plug on the whole stream, or, sometimes look, my relationship with Jim Bob now is not good because, I called him out like pretty hard with respect to his transphobia and his racism.
We know what your nickname is.
You got under his skin. Didn't we?
Well, and that's how you do it right there.
I think it's important, and I'm sorry, Bree.
Go ahead.
I think it's important to recognize, and I've been saying this for quite a while now, and gotten in some trouble for saying this. It's like, these folks are not here to debate. They are using the cloak of God and arguing about religion to get exposure in places like this, throughout the atheist sphere, to have these ontological, epistemological, etc. types of arguments where they can sneak their little bullshit agenda in, because their God commands them to be transphobic, to be homophobic, to be racist pricks. They are Christian nationalists. That's what they are. If they come to power, they will pass Seven Mountains theology into law. They will do that. And that's their real agenda. Their real agenda is not to have, not to engage with you all in counting the number of angels on the head of a pin. Yeah. Their agenda is to win.
Power and violence is what's behind it.
To impose violence once they do win, and on the way to winning, engage in stochastic terror.
Yeah.
And this is a very difficult thing, apparently, to convey. It's why modern day debates is such a terrible cesspit.
Yeah.
It's why because they make themselves a tool. They make themselves an available tool for these guys to show up under the guise of having a polite discussion about worldviews, when really their worldview is really quite pernicious and does serious damage. I don't know. I'll shut up at this point, but I've been trying over the past
I definitely hear you.
6 months to say this.
Here's
greater or lesser degrees of success, and I've gotten a whole lot of shit for it. I'll be honest.
Yeah, let me push back on that a little bit. I think that there's a lot of merit in what you're saying. What I would say is, firstly, like, stuff can be two things, right? Like, they can be interested in the debate, and they can find that, and there can be like a genuine, intent to engage it, and they can still be racist assholes who want to throw those things out too, right? And we can value the debate portion, and I think it is I think to a degree there is importance in being in their spaces and or neutral spaces, and pushing back against those stupid ideas, not because I think that there's going to be any chance in the world that you're going to convince a Jim Bob to change his opinion. You're not, right? But it's like, I said at some point, this isn't really a debate where you're trying to find the truth, right? Like in a scientific debate, you're both trying to seek the truth, and the winner is like the better theory. But in this kind of context, the goal here is like what you're doing is communication, whether that be science communication or social communication with an opponent. And sometimes that means you have to pick and choose your opponents, and you have to pick and choose the idea that some conversations are worth having and some aren't. And sometimes you have to shut it down because it's not, because, having that person's ideas appear alongside yours, it does more harm than good, right? Like Matt Dillahunty was right to walk out of that debate because platforming Andrew Wilson alongside Matt Dillahunty, he didn't deserve that, right? And I think that Jay is right when he says, look, everybody should have just shunned that guy and just everybody should have just walked out, right? But at the same time, like there is value in, going in and breaking the echo chamber and making sure that these stupid ideas are challenged, not because the person who's saying them is going to have ever going to change their mind, but because other people are listening, right? And so I don't know.
I take
that's my take.
I take that point, and to a certain extent, I agree with it that these ideas need to be challenged. But I think the other face of this coin is to the extent that the debate is only on the if the arguments are only framed in the context of a religious a questioning of is God real, or what is the nature of naturalism, poetic naturalism, or a particular worldview versus a secular humanist worldview vis-a-vis a religious worldview, and which Christian worldview are you going to talk? Again, angels, heads of pins, and all of that sort of thing. To the extent that it's focused there, it conceals the deeper agenda and the hatred that lurks in the mud that these folks are swimming in. Yeah. And I think it's important to let all the poison that lurks in the mud seep out. In the words of Robert Graves and I, Claudius, I think it's really kind of critical that people know exactly who they're dealing with.
Yeah,
and good. What the risks are in platforming them, in giving them space to wave the flag or the red, white, and black armband. Yeah. It's really you gotta know who you're dealing with, because especially for people who are at the tip of their spear, we feel it.
Yeah,
we feel it.
And I think that you're right. I think that Tsunami was right to impose a social cost on him for doing that stuff. And just kind of like, look, this is what happens when you are beacon off like this, is that somebody's going to come on and rip you a new one. And if you think any of us are going to come to your defense, you're dreaming, right? We're going to let her beat the tar out of you, and then we're going to come in and we're going to say, okay, all right, well, let's not fight anymore, but only after you're beat up, right?
Well,
and
I get it. And it's kind of like it's funny that Chuck tried to call into the transatlantic calling program, but decided to hang up. This is a guy who gave me his pronouns as attack helicopter, and Forrest Valkai ripped him a new one because he wasn't going to let it go. And the example in that show, in that clip, was he got on and he wanted to talk about religion as an external what was the word? An external phenotype, right? He wanted to talk about that. That was his topic. That's what he told me he wanted to talk about. And Forrest acknowledged that, and he said, "But first, I want to get past this attack helicopter thing." It's like, do you realize what a shitty thing to do that is? And there was a little bit of a back and forth. The guy wasn't acknowledging it, and Forrest, as Forrest does, he talked for quite a while, and finally, John Gleason, Godless Engineer, broke in and said, "Yeah, I just want to tell you, Chuck, you know, that was a shitty thing to do, but I think we can move on to the topic." And Forrest just went, "Well, I'm not gonna."
Yeah. Well.
And the rest of that call was focused on the poison that lurked in the mud. That, you know, this guy wants to call in under the cloak of a God who believes that I'm not real, and get and play that message. And who's he playing it for? Just like you said, he's not playing it for Forrest Valkai or the Lions audience. He's playing it for his audience. So to the extent that we engage him, he's going back to his small army of acolytes and saying, "See, I owned the Troons."
And that's what they're there for. They're
And
there
that's
for those
why
bites.
they're there.
They don't care about the conversation about emergent properties. They want to hear him. Just for a basic example, tell Dave he wears a helmet, which basically is saying the R slur over and over again to a panel full of progressive people, and say, and that's the point, is just to do that to you guys and keep you from saying anything or just going along with it, and keep you saying, "Oh no, I still want to engage you about this conversation." They mock you guys when they drop those little tidbits into the conversation, and you guys just plow past them. That's what they're there for. Then they're saying, "Look how soy these lefties are," or whatever. They don't even stand up for themselves, and I straight up call them the R slur to their face. I'm just using that one as an example, but obviously there was misogyny and transphobia as that was included in the commentary. Every time that you guys let them drop that into the conversation and then move back to talking about epistemology or some bullshit, that is their win. That is, you have to stop them right there and be like, "What do you mean by helmet? Like, are you talking about kids?" Yeah. You make them explain it. Make them break it down for you. Make them break it down for his audience, who are supposed to be loving Christians, who you would think would be compassionate towards the developmentally disabled that had to actually wear a helmet. Things like that. Hold their fucking feet to the fire. That's my expectation when I tune into to a stream like that. That's what upset me when I watched this last night. I didn't watch it live. I watched it later.
I'm going to apologize for using a commonly used slur that is used all over the internet and is used, I'm sure, back in whatever cave the discussion went on in after that stream. But sorry, not sorry. This is the way they talk about me. This is the way they talk about me. Yeah. This is what they are up to. When they say they want to eliminate transgenderism from society at large, they mean they want to eliminate me.
Yeah, you personally, they want to eliminate. Now, there's one other thing that I should bring up, though. And this is, this probably shows me up for what I am. I mean, I'm an old man. I got on this YouTube thing, and I wanted to make friends. I wanted to be part of this community. I wanted to be known. But I also wanted to put forth a bunch of ideas that I've been working on for the last 50 years, right? And yesterday I got 750 views. On all my other videos, I get 90 or 100 or whatever. But yesterday, when I had the pig snake on, I'll call out Team Stars. I got.
I'm the pig snake. He's not. He's no pig snake.
I wear the helmet.
No pig snake. And anyway, 750 views on his channel, 4.5K views, and on Dave's channel about 120 views. And like, there's a little bit of incentive there, because the stuff, like when I want to talk about my philosophy and stuff, nobody fucking wants to listen. But what I would like is what I have right now than the 8 of you on this panel having this discussion. And please come over to my channel once in a while, so I'm not. I mean, I am tempted by that number of views. I mean, isn't anybody? I mean, God, I mean,
and I'm not trying to discount what Bree said. We took it to heart, Bree. We made a mistake, and
I'm not going to do it again.
Going forward, things will be different.
Can I just say that's just going to be that video, Spike? I have a video where I engage with Darth Dawkins on my channel. Every single day, it is my top viewed video. Do you think that means I should just start doing Darth Dawkins content because it gets all those views?
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that.
Nope.
God damn it! I wish.
I mean, it gets, and I'm talking orders of magnitude more than anything else. Every single day, brand new videos. This video is from 2 years ago. Every single day, I release a video, and that video outperforms it because people want shit like that, and that's fine. And there's people that'll cover that. But if that's what you want to do with your channel, that's fine. But let me know that that's what you're doing with your channel, and then I'll freaking step away from it because I'm not going to hang out for that.
Don Henley said it best.
I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, exactly. That's
not
the
what
point.
I said.
It's you're choosing. If you're choosing to engage in I don't know, searching for clout. Yeah, it's successful. As a matter of fact, that's modern day debate's entire fucking business model. That's what they do. They know that this stuff works. That's why they put Andrew Wilson with Matt Dillahunty, because they were expecting a dumpster fire, and dumpster fires get all sorts.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I'm going to do that. I'm not going to do that again. Okay.
I wouldn't fault you for it. I want to say that I'm not trying to I'm not trying to shame you for it. I'm just saying that's not why I'm here. I'm not going to come onto your stream or watch what you're doing if that's where you go, because if there's place, so you can do it, and I need money too.
Well, here's my take on that. Is that look, it's true that controversy and conflict and stuff like that are interesting, and they draw people in. Yeah. And I'm no stranger to controversy and conflict, obviously. But I try to choose my opponents and and cultivate a relationship where, and even, look, if you're going to be talking with people that you disagree with, especially if they're like, about issues like this, you're going to end up talking to some people that are going to hold some other views that you also disagree with. And, some of those are going to be not very nice views, right? So if you want to talk about this stuff, you're going to end up having to talk to some extent or another with some not very nice people, right? But you can cultivate a relationship where there are boundaries, right? And where, you can have that sort of spiciness online, but that it doesn't spill over. So like, for example, like Standing for Truth and I have like a healthy relationship where like we definitely disagree vehemently online, but like he never goes down like, I don't know what his trans views are, but I imagine they're probably not super friendly, but we don't talk about that stuff, right? And we focus on the issues, and we have lots of fireworks about that, and it and it's good, right? Whereas with Jim Bob, like he doesn't understand that, he doesn't get it, and so the approach is, well, then what, here's a social sanction for you, is that I'm going to embarrass you, and we're going to talk about how what you're doing is inappropriate, and I'm not going to be engaging you about philosophy, because that's and so I guess what I'm saying is like, you can explore those relationships with people, and you can go into spaces where, it's not safe, and where, maybe the people, they might hold some less than savory views, but, you're dampening them. And that's not nothing, because like, if they're not expressing those views, and they're watching their mouths, and they're, being on good behavior, then you're changing behavior, and people see that, and it's got an influence. That's, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. What do you think, other individuals?
Well, look, I do understand the nature, at least to a certain degree, the nature of the business. I mean, I've been a host like 7 times now on the Transatlantic Calling Program, a little tiny channel called The Line. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
Yeah, little tiny.
There's a guy named, I think, Matt Dillahunty, I think, it's one of the hosts over there. And I screen calls for them, and I'm a mod on their channel. I moderate all their stuff. I understand what the business model is, and I understand what talking to people with opposing views. Now, the call-in format is a bit of a different beast. We want those spicy calls. We do, because that is, in fact, what generates interest in the show. And it also gives us the opportunity to correct things. We had a fellow call today who called in and said, I want to understand this biological. I don't know what's the difference between a trans woman and a biological woman. And by the end of the call, he had changed his mind. We did manage to crack the, he didn't know that phrase is often used not to gain knowledge, but as a cudgel. Yeah. In order to shut down any sort of understanding about the biological nature of a living, breathing human being. So he changed his mind, and yeah, I think that these conversations are valuable, but you got to pick and choose, and you got to remember who's doing what for what reason. Like I use the phrase, "What's my motivation here?" My motivation yesterday was to sit and listen until I had something to say germane to the argument. You may recall exactly what I had to say. You're mistaking the map for the terrain.
Yeah.
And the guy went 3 hours as I was sitting there selling bags, mistaking the map for the terrain.
Yeah.
And
you crystallized it perfectly. So
it was just fucking ridiculous. So I go on. What's the first thing he does? Go make yourself a dress.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting in a sewing machine, which was hysterically funny. That's like I do.
That's what we were talking. We were trying to just laugh. And we were trying to just laugh it off. And it was at the expense of some of the people in the audience we didn't think about, and that was our fault.
I muted him a few times during that.
Yeah, I know. And
I asked you, Stephanie, if you wanted me to boot him, and I did end up booting him.
Can I touch on that real quick? Because it shouldn't have come down to her. That was kind of rude of you to actually do.
No,
say, hey Stephanie, if the person who's giving us all this views and everything right now, I want you to make the decision on whether I should kick them out or not. That was totally out of line. I really
but I got something from Stephanie that she wanted to keep it going, and I wasn't, and I had to ask.
Yes,
but were you worried that it offended her, or were you worried that or did it offend you the way that Jim Bob was talking to?
It offended
okay,
me. Yeah.
So then
I had an agenda
and
too,
you make
because
that decision,
like I said,
man.
my agenda in that space was to get the poison to come out, so people could make it obvious, painfully obvious, that this guy was a fraud.
And he was a little.
All of that, the entire conversation was nothing more than a way to yell.
Yeah, the good thing about it, he was a little off guard, and his stuff didn't land the way it normally does on his show. So it kind of exposed him for the piece of rotten crap that he is. And I think a little bit of that was good. But I ain't gonna do it again. I ain't gonna do it, even though I got 750 views. I'm not gonna do it again. I'm sorry.
I was just saying, don't pin it on Steph to say, hey, kick this guy out. That's your channel, bud. Come on.
Oh, fuck.
What do you guys think about the approach of, like, here's just a spitball idea. What do you think, Bree? Like, what if he had done this, and Steph, what if he had done this? What if he had said, okay, Jim Bob, mute. All right, guys, like, I'm a little offended by this. I think that what he just said was inappropriate. And like, I'm considering kicking him off. Let's talk about it. And then you have like basically a roundtable discussion while he's on mute about his behavior. And then you kind of
did. We kind of did that. Yeah. We had him on mute.
No, I know you did. I know you did. I'm saying that it really, really puts them on blast if you
I actually
say
liked that.
explicitly.
When you all said, "Hey, did you hear what when you muted him and we're like, hey, no, we're not talking that way," and you all discussed it as a group. That was great. It was what I didn't like was when you were like, Steph, do you want to keep this guy on or not? That's what I didn't.
If I might,
So
yeah.
are you saying that I did one thing right?
I'm not saying anybody did everything wrong, and I really upset Mark when I talked to him about this. And I'm sorry I upset him, but that's just my opinion on it. From where I was sitting watching this, last night late at night, just going through it. He was being really misogynistic to. I mean, he was being ableist to Dave too, but Dave was just kind of rolling with it. So I was like, whatever. But he was being really misogynistic to Steph, and the conversation, instead of saying no, okay, let's dig into that misogyny. Where's that coming from? Why do you think a woman can only have an opinion if she doesn't look like a goblin or whatever the fuck he said? Hold him accountable when he says those things. If he's going to bring that up in the conversation, that's his choice, and he doesn't get to bring it back to the other topic, back to the main topic. Hold him accountable. Make him say in front of your audience and his why he was saying that about Steph, why he was saying that about Dave. That's the thing that I want to see.
We would have.
Now, I mean, look, there is a balance that has to be struck too, right? Because like what these guys will sometimes do on purpose is when they're losing a debate about some philosophy thing or another, is then they'll use that as a weapon, right? And they'll start trying to derail the conversation by just slinging out insults. When it's like, but you're on the ropes, and sometimes you have to like delay things. Like it's not simple, it's not easy, and that's why I think there was an element of that going on too for some people as well.
All right,
where it's
if I
like,
might, this is the real tension that we have to deal with in our community. I'll try to speed run a couple things, but a big part of what Bree's talking about, Mike, is with Jim Bob's behavior is way beyond what's acceptable in polite company. And part of what it should be is the people responsible for the stream setting clear boundaries. Because what ends up being the case is, you got to remember, to some extent, I'm going to say we, because Jim Bob's also a racist, and I've had to deal with his racism. We're already marginalized, so he already don't give a fuck about people like us. Yeah. And then when you put it to us as to say, oh, well, should he be booted? That's just opportunity for him to say, oh, look, they went soft for the DEI and had to kick us. As soon as when Stephanie said, oh, you're going to be a bigot, what did he say? Oh, the virtue signaling. And so there's an interaction with not only your control over the stream, but also the fact that you guys are white guys. Yeah. And for you to put whether there should be social sanctions for bigoted behavior on the marginalized people that's the issue there. And then and to be honest with you, the conversation idea is it's well-intentioned and it's probably a step forward, but you got to remember the same thing's going to happen in that conversation. As soon as we have that conversation about should we kick him, it's going to be the marginalized people speaking up and saying that was totally unacceptable. And then we're having a debate. And so what you want is to see your allies, your friends, say, no, that's too far, and then deal with it appropriately. The other thing I was going to say is you may decide not to do this again, but please don't stop having this conversation, because I can't stress enough, this is indicative of things that happen in the wider community, and they're happening all the time. This is just the latest example. Yeah. Other thing I wanted to bring up is some of you may know we have like a online but off YouTube like virtual headquarters called Gather. It's like basically a virtual office where a bunch of us hang out, and so people like Steph and Bree are some of my closest friends, and they're literally a part of my everyday life, and I just want to bring that perspective to what I'm about to say. Part of what people have to understand is like I said, there's a cost to be paid for these things. And anytime these kind of infiltration happens, that cost goes way up. And what a lot of people don't see is everything that happens once the go live button is turned off, once we stop the stream. And that's the emotional toil it costs on people. It's heavy. It sucks. When I wake up in the morning and I'm thinking of all the things that the institution wants from me academically, deal with racist bigots on YouTube is not on that list. And it's such an emotional toll to have these kind of heavy conversations, to have to feel like you literally need to stop what you're doing to construct boundaries so bigots don't invade the space where you interact with your friends.
And we did say Scott was on it, and we do have to give credit to Scott. Right away, he was muting, and he was like, "Hey, what's going on?" But again, we were trying to have the conversation, so then we kept bringing him back on. And lesson learned, Mike. Next time, listen to Scott.
Well, shit. When you're up to your ass in alligators, it's difficult to remember that the initial objective was to drain the swamp. Okay, and that's where I was. And the thing with Stephanie, I was offended by what he was saying, and I didn't find it okay. But then I kind of got the idea that Stephanie wanted to keep, engaging.
Well, that's an interesting way. I'm just sort of thinking out loud here, but and I'm interested in what you think, Jay, and Bree and Stephanie as well. Would it make a difference from the perspective of a marginalized person if the conversation was like, so look, I'm pissed that he said that, and like my inclination is to kick him off. Now, the only person that can save you right now is Steph. If Stephanie says that you can stay on, then I will give you one more chance.
Yeah, that would have been clearer. Because I just.
Well, I don't know if it would or not. I want to hear from the marginalized people about whether or not that would be of any
I
use
just
at all.
wonder why we have such an inclination to tolerate this behavior.
Yeah, I'm not inclined.
I mean, the problem is that sometimes you have to take an incremental approach, and so I'm trying to think about whether or not there are any useful increments that you can use to try and.
I've been screaming from the rooftops about this guy for a fucking month, and I haven't been screaming. I'm not only screaming about his bad philosophy, but about his fucking anti-feminism, his bigotry, his fucking misogyny. Just everything. This guy is a piece of shit, and I've been screaming that from the rooftops. And it's important to point out that he has 500 people on his stream listening to him live, and they're all going off. If you read his chat, you wouldn't believe the shit you see in his chat. And it's like, somebody take notice, because these motherfuckers are going to vote in November. These motherfuckers get to vote. And we have to pay attention that they exist out there. So I don't know. And I think showing him up, I don't think it was all bad. It was good to see that kind of fucking rotten shit,
So the point I just want to make, and again, I want to kind of emphasize this, and I'm going to say this in kind of a nerdy way. I'm almost thinking about this from the perspective of an office manager.
You're going nerd on us.
Yeah, like, it's just, think about seeing your team and your people. When we do a stream like this, there's at minimum hours, sometimes days, and oftentimes weeks of lost or diminished productivity. Because it's not just the 3-hour streams, it's the conversations that people feel afterwards. It's their need to engage in other forums and other conversations to deal with the spillover and what happens. It's catching other people who missed it up on what happened. It's processing, how do we respond to this? It literally sends a community into crisis, and I'm in no way, shape, or form being hyperbolic.
Okay.
And when it happens, it doesn't just and this is the encroachment aspect. Okay, it's not just, oh, we saw Andrew Wilson debate Matt Dillahunty and be transphobic, and now months later we're dealing with Speed showing up, Jim Bob showing up on Speed Stream. No, this is like the fourth or fifth channel in our community that's had a show or a flare up or a something with Jim Bob, right? And that's what I mean about the encroachment. It starts, oh, it's way out there. It's like not even close to us. And then it gets closer and closer and closer and closer. And each time it's the stream, and then the stream the day after, and then the response, and then a response to the response. And now somebody else wants to have you on and talk about the response. And And again, I'm seeing what happens when the cameras go off. It's hours, if not days, if not weeks of lost or diminished productivity every time this happens. Yeah. And on top of that, we have to understand that our culture just keeps telling us that it's worth it. And so you have to think, when you think about the value of this conversation, value to who? And I think if we're supposed to be critical thinkers, we need to get more honest about the fact that, honestly, I don't think there's a lot of listeners in the margins in these conversations. Like, maybe, but it's really hard. Most people are dyed in the wool on one side or the other. But what does really happen is spaces where we're not dealing with these people, where we're not dealing with these bigots, where we can respond to them. Yes, we have our space to respond to what they're saying, to call them out. But we build community. And I'm just trying to be honest, for a lot of us, we have to weigh that balance. We can't just say, oh, I'm your ally, I'm here for you. Oh, but I'm also going to keep doing this thing that's harmful. Like, even like me as a biologist, right? Like, a big part of this is you got to remember that, like Steph's example, right? This person calls in and he says, oh, I don't know the difference between biological woman and trans woman, right? That is literally people using biology to harm people. And they think that, right? So we have to be aware, not just that they're being inaccurate about biology, but that they're weaponing biology in a way that harms people. Well, when we deal with these bad arguments, be they political, religious, or whatever, a lot of times we're dealing with people who have those harmful ideas. And the debates we have are usually about topics that they use as instruments to do that harm. So again, like, that's why people love this community, because they find people who care about the truth, who are critical thinking, who are skeptic, and it makes them feel safe because they feel like this is a refuge from those harmful narratives. So when you go and bring in these people from the other side, you're not just bringing in their bad ideas, you're bringing in the harm to the community that comes with it. And that's what has to be weighed against if we're making a difference with them, or if we're making a difference with somebody who might be listening.
Yeah. I think that maybe there's a distinction that can be made between going on, into a neutral space, and interacting with that person in a neutral space or on their turf, and bringing them into your community where there's vulnerable people, the kinds of people that you want to protect, and allowing them to interact with them, right? Like, it's just like when you and I did our stream, Jay, and Jim Bob was like, I'd like to come on our stream. And I was like, no, we're not talking to you today. We're talking about you today. I'll talk to you another day, right? Yeah. It's like, I'm not giving you access to Jay. You've been cruel to Jay. Yeah. It's not, it's not going to happen, right? If Jay wants to interact with you, he will seek you out.
Yeah,
I'm not putting you in that position.
I definitely think that's a important distinction, Mr. Anderson, and it does matter because I know people have different expectations. I have different expectations when I go into Dave's stream or Mike's stream or Bree's stream than I have when I go into MDD, than I have when I go into even like a Myth Vision, versus what I have when I go into, like, say, a David Pakman, right? They're way out there, right? There might be still some overlap, but way different expectations. We should make sure Bree and Steph get in here because they've got a show to do.
Yeah. Bree, Steph, any Parting thoughts?
You keep working it over, boys. That's what I'm saying. Just keep keep reworking
Well, I
it.
mean, we're
because-
chewing on it, but we need a compass check here to
Yeah.
tell us whether or not we're going in the right direction, because we're not you, as you may have
Well-
already realized.
I know, but do you want to be me though? I have a bad reputation about this kind of stuff. You know,
No,
really
but I want to
be-
make sure that if I'm advocating for you, that I'm saying shit that you want said.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to, and this wasn't to me the crux of the issue it wasn't trans related specifically. It was misogyny. At the bottom line, it was seeing a woman being abused for her appearance in front of a group of my friends, and none of them like shut that shit down and said, no, you're gonna. I mean, I'd like to imagine that if that had happened when we were all standing in a group, that he would have been put to task to apologize to the lady, but that didn't. That's just not the way it went down, and I was taken aback by that. And then it took Sumami coming in to be like, this is how you respond when you see somebody treating a woman like that in public. I was
yelling, hey, whoa, no. And it's like, and my mute thing kept coming up on the screen. I was yelling into my microphone. I really was, Bree. I
muted you. I'm sorry. My daughter was killed by misogyny. She was
like I say, we were trying to laugh it off, but I was like, oh, no.
So I don't like him talking about the helmet thing to you. That bothered me.
I didn't either, but
anybody else.
Just understand, my idea was I wasn't gonna let him get under my skin. So whenever he said anything, I just said, ha, yeah, my helmet. No thanks. It's gonna mess up my hair, So that's what I was doing.
I went into my career because I was originally taking care of households of developmentally disabled children. So I kind of cut my teeth with these guys, and they're going to be completely to say that someone wearing a helmet can't be completely. I've had deep, rational conversations with kids in helmets. So fuck that guy.
Like I said, again, we weren't thinking about people in the audience and stuff. That was our bad, because we were just like, whatever you say, we're just going to laugh at it. Right. So, and that was, like I said, that was a mistake on our part, not thinking about other people. Because
all right, you guys, I got lawyery stuff to do, but it's been good talking to you. We'll see you later.
All right, Mr. Anderson.
Hey, Mr. Anderson, we should do a stream together or have a conversation at some point.
Peace out.
Okay.
Who's that?
Speed of Sound, Answers in Atheism.
Sure.
Yeah, I've emailed you a couple times, and then we kind of lost the thread. We were trying to set something up, but I would.
Email me again, and we'll set something up. That'd be great.
Good enough. Thank you.
All right, bye, guys.
Yeah. So a couple of things I want to touch on, hopefully, while Bree's maybe here. So one is, I just to sort of highlight what I was saying before, Mike, is this what I mean about you can't rely on the numbers. What often the experience in this space is when trouble comes, that is the most popular stream. Those are the things that get and by nature of not having significant representation in this community, we're always few in number. And so I think that's why I'm here, and I think that Bree and staff probably feel the same way. We're here because regardless of what happened, you guys, we know you care, right? And we know you're serious about it. And so we're like, oh, look, there's actually an opportunity to have a conversation about this, to point these things out. So we don't fault you for not knowing these things. We don't expect you to have any training on these things. We don't expect you to have any expertise in this area. And we're all essentially just out here trying to wing it, right? And so we're just trying to say, hey, these are things that happen, and we'd like people to notice. So I want to express some sympathy for that feeling, because I know what that's like. When you do these things, the algorithm is going to pop in your favor, and it's hard to resist just doing more of that. And also, even within our atheist community, again, And that's why I brought up the Matt Dillahunty example, because that's an example of how it happens in real time. When you act in solidarity for even the trans person that you're in a relationship with, instead of us standing in solidarity with you, we go, no, you should have finished the debate. We set our solidarity and allyship aside, and everybody goes and then has the damn debate. Go ahead, Steph.
And it's happening right now, right? You know, we're having this conversation, sort of going over the whole thing, and what's happening now in your chat.
Well, this conversation is a good thing. Is one good thing that came out of yesterday, right?
Yeah. But you know, let me just read this comment. These rough conversations are going to continue. The moral relativist, physicalist men can be women positions. Men can be women positions have been refuted already. You're already way behind. This is a cope. It's not a cope, mate. It's not a cope. If anybody's fucking coping right now, it's you. The fact that we exist.
I'm out of the loop. What is cope?
Yeah,
is it coping?
What is a cope?
Basically,
have you ever heard of coping? A coping strategy.
I know what coping is. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is a cope. He's basically saying, I drink liberal tears. You've got to know the code words, guys. If you don't know the code words, you shouldn't be engaging with these people. You really shouldn't. You really shouldn't be engaging on these topics.
I assumed it was coping, but
well, that's what it is.
It's like one of those guys, like you're walking down the street, and this homeless guy will just start yelling at you for no reason, and then you just
Well, you know, orthodoxy destroys atheism. Why don't you call into the transatlantic calling show sometime and see if you can cope?
Yeah.
Let's see if you can cope with the arguments. You're so goddamn brave, you people. You come over here into chats, and you laugh at people who are trying to be empathetic, and your entire program is to drive division and distortion into political discourse. That's what you do. And some of us at least are awake enough to know what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Yeah. The absurdity.
And you know, this is what needs to get called out. You need to recognize if you're gonna have these conversations, you got to get beyond the God bothering.
Yeah.
Because that's not what they're about. They don't care about. They don't fundamentally care. The guy just basically says, I don't discuss God in comment sections with unbelievers. You know, it's like they don't care. What they want is exposure, and to the extent that you're willing to give it to them unquestioned, or just weakly challenged, it doesn't help. If they want to have these conversations about trans issues, send them to Takis, send them to Forrest, send them to people that are capable of having them, but don't even think you're prepared to have them.
I put him in timeout, and I did not display any of his messages. But then, if he's saying these things, that could be a topic of conversation, right? What he's saying and how he's saying.
Oh yeah.
So
and what you do is you point and laugh.
But if I put him in timeout, you know, you don't see his messages, and you know, so which is the right way to handle this? But I guess if I'm not, I didn't want to hear his shit today, so I haven't read his messages. I just saw that he was being kind of a fucking, you know, JimBobist.
My point is, you can't ignore him.
Okay, well,
I am
ignoring now.
That's the big problem. Is like I said, you know, I would never talk to somebody like Hovind, but there's a need for some people to address his nonsense. You know, it's really difficult sometimes, and
I do got to go. I'll be listening though.
Okay.
All right, Bree.
All right, Bree.
I got to go pretty soon, but I'm
and
here
what Bree said was taken to heart. You know, Bree and I are friends, and you know, it hurt my feelings too, because like I said, you know, we weren't thinking about folks in the audience, and we do apologize. You know, like I say, he's going to cut, oh, you need a helmet. And it's like, yeah, ha, ha, ha. You know, that's just where my mind's, anything he said was just like, yeah,
Well,
ha, 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 you know,
yeah,
whatever.
He was making geriatric jokes, and he was, you know, he was coming down on every fucking person he possibly could. And it's like, it was hard to keep track of all the things he was coming down on. God damn.
I'd love to hear. I'd love to hear from Leo. What's Leo got to say about this?
Yeah, what's Leo got to say?
Leo was there, and by the way, my compliments on your argumentation, because you really actually made great points within the context of the religious argument. And the curious thing to me, anyway, was you were the only person that Jimbo wanted to talk to in the whole thing. Everybody but Leo got a slur hurled at them. Everyone.
I was waiting too, and I guess he just didn't. But I mean, I was offended by what he said. I reacted largely by laughing at his insults, but that's almost a what's the word? Involuntary reaction. That's how I handle a lot of bigotry. Is it just makes me chuckle and shake my head like, okay, so you're a shitty person. I know, now I know.
Yeah, he was employing the Danny tactic. That's a tactic that Danny employs. He picks one person to talk to and everybody else is an idiot. And
well, I don't think that. Yeah. That wasn't what I was doing.
Well, no, he was talking to you.
Met Jim Bob.
Oh, yeah, that's...
Jim Bob was using the Danny tactic. He picked you out, and he could call us idiots every time we tried to... Mark and I and everybody else, every time we tried to say something. So that's an old tactic. You pick one person.
He tried to get you on the information thing, but then you know he kind of got sidetracked.
Well, yeah. Well, that's where I nailed him, was on the information thing. You're trying to make a false equivalency between the information that exists
that was so
and
stupid.
the information that can be conveyed. In other words, you're trying to make it as if what we call consciousness is because consciousness is material, that other material is incomprehensible. I guess is the way I'd put it. It's like, well, you know, it was again mistaking the map for the terrain.
Yeah, that's what's wrong with his thinking entirely. When he said, "Oh, the apple should have something in it that says apple," right? It should say apple in English somehow. That the semantics should be in the information.
What an apple is to an apple, I couldn't possibly tell you.
Right.
You know,
So he was ignoring.
But what an apple is to a human, I can describe.
Right.
And it's like. And why an apple that falls out of an apple tree is the same. It has the same modalities as what makes the moon go around the Earth is another, kind of thing.
Basically, it's semiotics, right? Okay, you have the object, you have the object.
Right. Yes, it is semiotics.
Then you have
that really, that's really key.
Yeah,
that's really key. That's very perceptive.
And then you have the third thing, which is the sign. So if you see bear tracks in the woods, right, the bear tracks are the sign, and then you have the person that's interpreting the bear tracks, and then you have the actual bear, right? There are three different things, and semiotics always draws it out in three ways. But what he was doing is ignoring the fact that there was an observer, that there is somebody that is adding that semantic aspect to the information and saying, oh, no, it should be inside the information. So he was mistaking the map for the territory. And that's what his argument, the two premise argument that we were picking on, that's what he was doing there too. He was
that's why his premises I don't accept.
Don't work, right? Yeah.
Can I say one more thing really quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I feel like I'm just kind of trying to justify my laughing because that's probably not the greatest response. But one of the reasons I didn't really say anything is I didn't want to like egg him on and get him to just keep going. You know, I was trying to avoid that. But also, it was quite clear that he was backed into a corner on every point, didn't really have much place to go. And that's why when people said something to him, he just lashes out with these.
Yeah, exactly. He did the Mr. Anderson T thing, right?
Yeah, it doesn't justify his insults by no means, but
Yeah.
I do kind of find it funny when you have to resort to just open fucking bigotry because you have nothing to say. Like,
Right.
what the fuck are you doing here?
And two things on that, Leo, and I thought it was fine, laughing, but because I think pointing and laughing is actually a useful strategy in those circumstances. It's like, you must be fucking joking, right? Is that all you got? You know, that is a useful strategy. But it's also a useful strategy to point out exactly what you're laughing and joking about.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that as I said before earlier, it's exposing the poison, and in doing so, you show what the motivation is here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, I was the only person who, when the guy, I bet you think that a man can get pregnant. I said, why?
Well,
As a matter
yeah.
of fact, yes, I do think a man can get pregnant. Would you like to discuss that matter?
Oh, hang on a second.
So it's like, you know, if you're gonna engage these guys, get them to talk about what they really, you know, get them to talk about the God, get them to acknowledge that they're hiding behind God's skirts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To justify bigotries that they hold, and irrational fears that they are promulgating within society at large. Because those irrational fears are stoking a form of as Jay was saying earlier, a form of disruption to real people's lives, and some of those people are your friends.
Yeah.
So, you know, think of, you know, do that empathy trick that seems to be lost on some of these folks. Put yourself in Jay's place or my place or Bree's place, or when this sort of thing comes up, just try that and question whether it's useful to have this conversation. Now, I know Jay had this conversation with Jim Bob, and now I've had it. I don't feel the need to do it any longer.
No, not again. No more rotten
know?
fish. I took one bite and spit it out.
Yeah.
Can I say something about that real quick?
Hi, Grayson.
Sure. Hey, Grayson. How are you? Nice. And by the way, I don't think we've ever been on this. Well, we've been on one stream together and it didn't go well, but I think maybe we can get a little bit better at this point.
Yeah, exactly. I watched the stream from yesterday, and I then was wondering, did I actually watch the stream yesterday? Because my methodology is just going through my mind, and I thought that I heard the stream, but can I really trust my own senses and rationality? I don't know. This is what I was most frustrated with listening to the debate, is that all Jim Bob is throwing out is solipsism and solipsistic arguments. And he's not a solipsist. He doesn't believe that stuff. But he thinks that it's a gotcha against physicalism. So I knew that argument was just never going to go anywhere with him. Like,
every time,
there was no point in having that argument about physicalism and information with Jim Bob, because at the end of the day, he's just always going to revert to solipsistic arguments.
He's always going to go meta and ask you, how do you know that?
That's what they all do. How do you know anything? How do you even know that you're not a brain in a vat? And I just look at him and go, here is one hand. And like, therefore you're dumb and you don't know what you're talking about. I don't know how many of you.
So I was actually like, when Tsunami joined, I was like, definitely like, yes. Like that was like, it was very cathartic, because I was getting frustrated with the conversation. How, like, I understand that you guys wanted to keep bringing it back to the topic at hand, which was like information, physicalism. But I felt like that was ultimately never going to go anywhere with Jim Bob. Like, he kept making these passing jabs, like calling you guys brain dead or moronic or throwing out bigotry or transphobia. And I was like, you know, every time he would do that, y'all would call him out, but then also try to go back to the conversation that I felt was just going in circles. So it was actually like very cathartic to hear somebody just like verbally put him in his place. Like,
well, I got enough information from him to like when I said that I had him by the short hairs, I got enough information from him in the way I wanted it, that I could present basically an entire counter argument against what he was saying and show exactly what he's doing. Because it's really difficult when you look at that premise one, and he starts talking about the effects of physics. It's difficult to see how it is wrong. Okay, when you first look at it, you're like, what the
and
fuck?
that's because it's confusing, right? Like,
Yeah,
effects of physics aren't true or false. Most people hear that and are just, it's like a gear slips for a second,
right?
And that's one of the things that happens with people like Jim Bob. Oh God, I mean, Kent Hovind tries to do shit like that, you know? They try to get like the gears to slip a little bit so that you're not you're sort of off on the other track instead of on the main line, if you get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I think Leophilus actually had him give a tacit concession when it sounded like he kind of agreed that it wouldn't be a conceptual problem on physicalism if you had a proposition, which would be a thought, and then a second order thought about that proposition, thereby making the first thought, the first proposition, a referent. But then, like, it kind of just like derailed. He just went on a rapid fire questioning. So, like, I think with people like that, you just need to give him, tell him that he needs to give the argument for the independent argument for P1. And I'm not sure he would have been able to do it, and it would have looked really funny.
Definitely.
He wouldn't have been able to do it.
Yeah, and then again, you know, that's, to me, that's setting aside sort of the instrumentation of why he even wants to do this. So one thing that's also important that we think about when these things happen, one of the things I've noticed consistently is marginalized people eject themselves from this space. Sometimes they're told to. Sometimes there's literally explicit messaging. Well, we need to have this debate, or we're going to have this discussion. If you don't like it, then you don't have to watch the stream, or there's the door, right? And again, it just depends on how you want to approach things. But for me, that's an unacceptable situation. Like that's an unacceptable outcome of this.
I was listening as I was off doing my little errand, and Jay made the point about I talked about the guy who called into TACUS today and was going on about biological, you know, the difference between a biological woman and a trans woman. And it was like the call worked out really, really well. But the thing is, the guy was using that phrase because he's been taught to.
Yeah.
Because some of the folks that are using that phrase like they did, you know, like they're doing in chat now, like they did yesterday, like they do every place they show up on the premise of having an argument about God beliefs and shit like this. They use that. And it spreads, and people who don't know what they're implying. In other words, people who are weak in biology. I mean, it's like, what isn't biological about me, right? You know, we can go through all of the arguments. Yeah. Is it chromosomes? Well, they're phenotypes too. Is it the genes? Well, the genes depend on various modalities to be activated in a biological way. Because if it weren't for the fact that biology works and they work with my genes, I couldn't have transitioned. You know, I wouldn't have developed secondary sex characteristics that are appropriate to a phenotype. So it's like, I'm biological, and it's through biology the transition even works.
Has anyone
get
ever
deeper into the question of what's the etiology of a person being at odds with their birth sex from an early time, or you know, at some point in their lives, you go into that. But what does it matter? You know, what does it actually matter?
Somebody asked me in the chat.
Why are you so fucking upset about it? This is
Jim
why
Bob,
these people need to call Tacitus or speak with someone with the capacity to discuss matters of biology, like Forrest, or like someone who's gone through the process to get a grasp and to listen to real experiences, rather than getting up on a highfalutin plane, on Mormon discussions. Two cis guys, two ex-Mormons, a couple of former bishops. Neither one has any biological training, and they're all sitting there talking about the trans problem.
Right.
Somebody asked if Jim Bob denied evolution. He does. He sounds like Tucker, and there's no evidence for evolution. God made Adam and Eve and all that stuff. Yep.
That's kind of a good segue, because that's something I wanted to touch on real quickly. Because I think, a lot of you guys are really into philosophy, and like Leo was here, I think Leo does a great job talking about philosophy. But from my perspective, you got to remember, these are creationists. And so when they say they love science, when they say they want to debate the science, we all know they don't, right? And there's a certain futility to discussing genes and DNA and the fossil record with Kent Hovind, because he's been educated at least several hundred times on those issues, and they go one in one ear and out the other.
Out the other, yes, sir.
And ultimately, right, it's a placeholder anyway. Like, one of the things that I'm constantly frustrated with is, like, even in my field, too many biologists think that we can just ignore creationists.
Yeah.
And part of that is they don't recognize the way in which anti-creationism is not just anti-science. It's literally a cudgeled into like an anti-empirical worldview that seeks to marginalize and harm people. So they seek to literally use anti-evolution as a tool of Christofascism. And you should be concerned about combating anti-evolution even more so because it's being used to establish Christofascism than because simply it's bad science. It's bad science that's also been literally used to, many of us say, make the world a worse place, right? And honestly, one of the things I would say is that all of these conversations about philosophy actually fit into that same creationist worldview.
Yeah.
One of the things I say is, like, they're the way they even try to separate a discussion of science and a discussion of philosophy is a perversion of both. In other words, it's a denial of the way science itself is a philosophical growth in outcome of our philosophy. Our philosophy matured in terms of, hey, there's a lot about premises and arguments and things we could sit here and draw on the board, but ultimately when it comes to deciding what's what in the world, wouldn't it be great if we did experiments, if we tested hypothesis, if we did peer review, right? And so those are philosophical commitments that led to an empirical method. And when you try to go back to traditional or continental or whatever type of philosophy, in a way, you have to recognize that there's a systematic effort that they're making to pull the conversation away from empiricism and back over here into premises and armchair discussions and unprovable arguments and all this type of stuff. At the same time, they don't even care about getting any of that right. Right. And so there's a vulnerability. Like, I have to recognize, before I am gung-ho to jump in and correct their science, what are they really doing? And then try to combat what they're really doing. And I think in this community, we're vulnerable because, I hate to say it, a lot of y'all are philosophy nerds. Y'all are philosophy nerds, and somebody says some bad philosophy, y'all just want to jump in there and correct the philosophy, instead of stepping back and realizing, this is a flat earther, right? Like, correcting their premises isn't going to make a difference.
Yeah.
So Jim Bob, in my first discussion with Jim Bob, he was using flat earther arguments, and he does not accept even the existence of gravity. He doesn't believe that gravity is real. So it definitely is like flat earth territory with him. He says he's not a creationist. He says that he's not a flat earther. He says he's just agnostic and radically skeptical about all forms of empiricism. If you try to make empirical arguments to him, then he will suddenly retreat into the realm of philosophy and metaphysics, and he'll just start making solipsistic arguments at you and just say, well, how does your empiricism methodology relies on the existence of truth and logic, which cannot happen without a God. So it always just goes back to this philosophical discussion, no matter what the argument is actually about, no matter how extremely strong the empirical evidence is. He will always find a way to pull it back into these metaphysical, philosophical, heady discussions about how do you know that reality is real, bro?
Yeah,
Well,
that's exactly why I was trying to show that little model I had. Basically, you have to come up with a model when you're having these conversations in philosophy. And philosophers that do not come up with this model end up going around in circles because they always go to the meta level. And if you talk about knowing something, they'll start attacking knowledge and the reliability of the senses. Well, when you're talking about physicalism, you have to adhere to a model. And nobody was buying into my fucking model, and I'm butthurt about it.
Let's
when I was on
here.
I conceded
after Dave.
I conceded everything he was saying. I said, okay, fine. I'll just concede to everything you're saying. What does adding the mind or God do for your argument? And he didn't like that at all. Because I just
about the fact that
I wouldn't argue. Yeah, I wouldn't argue. I just said, okay, fine. But what does adding your thing do? And then he just dove right back into his arguments. Yeah.
Jay, he doesn't want to deal with the fact that his worldview also it does not get rid of solipsism. Like solipsism is just as much of an unaddressable problem in his worldview as it is for any others, because at the end of the day you have to trust the reliability of your senses as a starting ground for anything.
Well, I think he's actually at least trying to give an undercutting defeater for knowledge on physicalism. Obviously it doesn't work, but I just want to say that you don't need to deny that physicalists affirm a mind, especially if you're a reductionist or non-reductionist, or even if you're an illusionist, right? You can still understand and employ the folk language that people use when describing what we call the mind.
Yeah, illusionists.
I sure would love to hear.
That's what saying we should hear from Sumami.
I sure would love to hear from what Sumami has to bring to the conversation here.
Sound work?
Oh, now you're putting me on the spot. Now I feel weird.
Sue.
Yeah, well.
Y'all, this is the real Sumami. Believe it or not, offline, Sumami is just a very sweet, shy girl who wants to play Fortnite.
No, I can be sweet, but I don't feel necessity for me to maintain civility with somebody that has spent the last 3 hours reaching out slurs and fucking hate speech.
I absolutely loved what you did yesterday, and I kept it in the video, but Jim Bob removed it. He couldn't handle it. He couldn't handle it being on his channel. So.
I actually think that's a fantastic point, though. Right? Is when we do these things that we think are defeating our opponents or really putting them to task, they're happy to participate. They think it's great for their channels. They're happy to share it with their audience enthusiastically. When they get called the fuck out, cursed out, and shut down, they edit that part out of the video. And that shows you.
Did he keep me in there just to laugh at?
I don't know.
There's talk of a music video they're going to make with you. He was saying something to his person in the chat that makes videos for him.
Then later he decided, he was going to make a music video out of what Sumami said, but then he decided later to take it out, and he took the video down.
Yeah.
And I complained because he sniped my video, and I said, fuck you, you're not going to make it members only and sell my content. And he came back and said, oh, no, I'm just editing Sumami. So he couldn't handle what you said. He couldn't handle having that in public. But
he has done that for lots of videos, though. Like in my debate with him about evolution, I mean, I stuck to just what are the empirical evidence, and he still made that video members only because he got embarrassed in front of his audience. So I think anytime he gets embarrassed, he just wants to take it down.
Take it out. Yeah.
I think I think I've made the point, but I want to make it again. This has been a kind of a months-long thing. It's like everyone engaged in dealing with people like the whole Crucible gang, really.
Yeah.
It needs to be aware of what their real program is. Their real program is to create chaos and to make the people they hate afraid.
Yeah.
And they don't like it when we're not afraid. I don't like it. I don't like it much at all. But every creator that chooses to engage with them needs to keep in mind that this is what they're after. They're after that clip. They're after that engagement, and they are deliberately provocative in order to achieve that end. Those armbands, the ones that are red, black, and white. That's what they're selling. They're selling hatred. And if you're aware of that and can engage in a way that is where your primary aim is to combat that rather than necessarily to destroy their God belief stuff, which you're not going to do. And I've said this a million times. People have been arguing religion for as long as Homo sapiens have imagined gods. You know, we've got Marduk is way better than Yahweh. It's like let's have these. How it's fruitful and it's fun and it's this and it's that. But when you're dealing with a political situation where people's lives are on the line, I'd urge you to think about the most virulent of the people that have a real agenda.
So Stephanie, I'd really like to ask you a clarifying question about that. Basically, how do you think that Jim Bob should have been handled yesterday? Like in an ideal world where he would have been, handled exactly where you're rebutting the things that he's saying, you're addressing the bigotry and the hatred that he's coming out. But what does that look like?
What it looks like is, hey, brain injury. Okay, let's talk about brain injuries.
Yeah,
I did see that you were ready to
hey! I really, I bet you think that men can get pregnant. Okay, yeah, men can get pregnant. Let's talk about that.
I was just about to bring that up. That's exactly what your reaction seemed to be. Like right when he said that, you were like, "Okay, yeah, switch gears. Let's talk about that."
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you don't want to talk, if you want to talk, to me what it shows when somebody says, yeah, well, it's kind of like what John Gleason said in the whole Forrest Valkai thing with the guy with I don't know if you're here when I told that story, but when guy calls in, his name's Chuck. He's called in a number of times to shows on the line. I screened the call. The guy gave me his pronouns as attack helicopter. I said, well, I'm not going to put that in. I'm gonna say none given because first of all, attack and helicopter are not pronouns. One's a noun and the other one could be a verb. I'm not sure, but neither one of them are pronouns, so I'm not going to put that in. And so he wanted to talk about external phenotypes. Religion is an external phenotype, right? And it's like, all right, well, sure, that's a fine little philosophical argument that the guy wanted to have with Forrest and John. Forrest says, we'll get to that, but first I want to. My producer just wrote down that you gave your pronouns as attack helicopter. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't want to talk about that. Then Forrest is going to say, well, you do realize that's a pretty shitty thing to do, right? Yep. But I'm not here to talk about that. Well, we're going to talk about that. It's my show. We're going to talk about that. John, what do you think? John goes, Well, yeah, that's a really shitty thing to talk about. But we can get to the real question. You know, we can move on. And Forrest goes, "Well, I'm not gonna."
Yeah.
And the call wound up being about the transphobia, it wound up being, as you're well aware, you've been on the line, I think, with Forrest. So those conversations can go on a while, and it did. It went on for 40 minutes.
Yeah.
And it never got to the God skirt the guy was hiding behind.
Yes. And that kind of mirrors exactly what my feelings were from the stream yesterday, where, like I was saying, like the conversation that like was ostensibly the topic about physicalism and information, I felt like was just keeping going on these like frustrating circles over and over. And then he would throw out these little jabs or these little bigot points. And then like people would say, well, that's really bigoted, but let's go back to the topic. And I do, like, I don't know.
I'm
Speed,
a fucking nerd, man. I like the topic. I'm sorry.
I was just about to ask you, Speed, if you regret like going back to the main topic and you wish that you guys would have delved into some of the things that he was saying more, or like what your thoughts are on it day after.
I think the universe is unfolding exactly as it should. And everything that happened yesterday was in some way to a greater good. And I got the information I needed out of it. And we're having this conversation today, which is the important part about it, right? So anyway, there's one thing I want to point out about Andrew Wilson. He's been on with a number of feminists. And I want you to understand this and get this, right? And he sits with these. He obviously works out or whatever, but he's a man, and he's sitting there talking to these feminists, and he's pretending he's being very, very calm and intellectual, and just having a conversation with him. But the whole time he's telling him that at any time I could murder you and take away your right to vote, your right to power. And he's sending that message over and over again to these young women. And and them doing that, there's a violence in this that he is portraying that is so sickening. I've been in that position, particularly with my father, where he's all calm, but at the same time, I'm absolutely sure that he's going to murder me at any fucking minute. And if you know that feeling, every woman that they have had a conversation or debate with, he's put that forth. And that has got to be fucking stopped. I mean, that is just the shittiest thing I've ever seen.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that was what Jim Bob did to me in the stream that I was referring to with Jay. He sat there for a good solid 10 minutes and basically alluded to raping me.
Yeah. There you go. And it's so fucking... They seem like they're reasonable, but that is the essence of a good horror film, right?
It's also ironic because I remember Andrew Wilson specifically complaining about that exact thing, but reversed when he was in person at the Modern Day Debate con. And afterwards, he was like, I was afraid for my safety up there.
Good.
Everybody was disagreeing with me. And then he specifically recalled a time like when I was talking to him in the hallway, and he was saying, I don't know if this guy's going to like throw a punch at me. Like, he's standing really close to me and I'm asking him to please go away. And he said, make me. And like, he was feeling unsafe when I was talking to him, and he was complaining about it. And then he's like intentionally doing the same thing to other people.
Exactly.
Like, yeah.
Hurt people like to hurt others. I mean, I think that, it's something always to bear in mind.
Not always. Some of us have gone beyond that. So
also just to sort of muddy the waters here a bit, part of what's difficult is, at least for me, I know when these things happen on your channel, it's taken very personally. Like, something happened on my channel. Did I say or do something wrong? What should I have said or done instead? And to me, it's important to not take it personally.
Oh no,
like I said, we've all done these things, and it is kind of more important to be having this bigger conversation about what's going on in our community. And also, I like to think it's about priorities and not protocols. So like for me, what was interesting, sort of observing what happened yesterday and being in the chat and then sort of observing the fallout was you have a different call for different responses. And for me, they were all trauma responses. So Stephanie, who in our community is someone who we rely upon for wisdom and grace and to help us calm the waters.
Perfectly well. I've lost my shit when I shouldn't have on several occasions, and I'm trying to get better at it.
I know that, but that's kind of my point, right? Is
you're good at it.
Is that when we say good on you, Steph, you were calm and you were ready to deal with his thing and you were ready to sit in there and hang in there and tough it out. As Stephanie's friends, I can tell you that's a trauma response. It takes something different of Stephanie to be calm in that situation and handle it the way she did than it does for her to go about her normal day, where that's not a consideration she has to make while she's trying to sew or make a bag or fix a sale, right? Sumami has her own thing going on. And again, even though people are happy with her response and glad she did it, that's real emotion she was showing. She's not doing this as a performance or an act. She just watched her friend get attacked and her other friends sit back and not do anything about it. So when she's raging out on stream, we're all going, yeah, grab the popcorn. Sumami's handing him his ass. But I'm dealing with, Sumami's got a whole bunch of shit going on and dropped all that because she had to stick up for her friend, right? Bree wasn't even around. So Bree comes in later. What's going on? She wants to know what's going on. It takes time for her to sit there and get caught up, right? And then she's trying to figure it out. And then she expresses disappointment offline to some of her friends, and then she ends up out the damn group chat. What kind of sense does that make? So all three of these responses, one, we have to accept these are three women who handled this in three very different ways. And so if we want to be sensitive to say, like, as men, what's the right way to advocate here, right? Again, that's why it's going to be about priorities, not protocol, because they're going to give us different protocols. And we got to prioritize, like, what means the most to us. And then also understand that no matter what protocol they're giving us, it's a trauma response. And part of what we need to step up and do is protect them from that trauma, regardless of what the proper response is, because nobody needs to be dealing with unnecessary trauma.
Yeah, I mean, I don't do regret in my life anymore. I'm only interested in my behavior moving forward and modifying and changing. That's it. So I'm not taking it personally. It was a shit show, that's for sure, and I'll be evaluating it for a long time. But what I'm really interested in is what I can do better. So that's it.
Well, just my 2 cents there. It's just examine people's motivations when they want to come in and have these conversations. Are they? It's like people get pissed off at Dillahunty when he loses his shit in a call. He never does that when somebody's actually arguing in good faith or is trying to make very rarely will he do it, but people who are going to be wankers about it and say, "Oh, you're muting me now," right? It's like if it's a back and forth, it's fine. But you want to be a dick, then be a dick.
Well, like I said, we made an effort. And, like we were saying, it's like, are you not supposed to talk to anybody? But, when you come into somebody else's house, I mean, running his shtick was just uncalled for. He could have just talked about his argument for a few minutes and then said, hey, you know what? I got to go back to my show and call you dummy now and then leave. Right.
He's the only Christian we've had in here in about a year. And so if that is the best example they have, that's the one they put forward.
And I think that when you were towards the end there, you were already getting to the point where you were talking about just kicking him and wrapping up the stream. Yeah. And I think that when you're kind of getting to that point because of some of the specific things that he's saying, maybe it is better, like you're saying, that you want to like analyze how you how you could your behavior could change. I think it maybe would be at least interesting to delve into, like, well, if I'm ever considering kicking him because of some of the things that he's saying, maybe I want to specifically push back on these things he's saying and shift gears, dive deeper into those things.
Yeah, that would have been a different conversation.
Yeah,
I felt basically my nerd was there, and I had been so interested in just that particular argument against physicalism for so long that I was going to go on his channel, and that would have been a fucking disaster. I mean, he would have got, he would have done so much more.
I think in the end, with you and everybody else, and Grace and everybody else that's been engaged in him, has showed that his arguments are terrible, and all he wants to do is insult you for clicks. So we get it, and the word is around now. So that's what you wanted. That's what you got.
That's what I wonder. I wonder if he. Go ahead, sorry.
Jim Bob, since you're in chat, you might want to consider some fucking therapy, my guy.
Oh, Jim Bob's in chat. Oh my goodness.
Oh, bring him up here.
Yeah, you know that he's not gonna.
No, he ain't getting back.
Not again.
You're kind of a piece of shit. So
Jim Bob, come to the politics.
One thing I think is important to consider, and I mean this sincerely, is lately I have had to eat some humble pie. And me, but like seriously, I think the people we deal with on the other sides, when it comes to the arguments, the content, the philosophy, the science, the whatever it is, the policies, they're morons. But when it comes to how to play the game, the social dynamics, how to work the algorithm,
right,
they're very strategic. And it often feels like they're playing chess while we're playing checkers.
Yeah.
Because
and we're being honest, and they don't have to.
Yes.
Christian.
And they're also like, again, I think these things work for them, and in some sense they do us damage. So even in my interactions, I have to be honest, like there's a way in which it's easy to justify engaging with them because it can help you grow. But in the realities of, in my experience, the growth really isn't there to justify it. Like when you go and interact with these spaces, like you don't, it's very difficult to grow off of that. And then a lot of times, what is the number? Like, what's the quality? Like, I remember when I started doing more, when I was doing more of this stuff, I felt like the quality of my community was downgraded because there was all these trolls, all these bad faith actors. All of a sudden, instead of paying attention to what I'm trying to talk about or what I'm trying to get into, they're constantly, batting down, bad faith actors in the chat. And then you see them do this systematically. Like even for us smaller channels, it is important to them because what they realize is I can have these interactions, I can put them on my channel, I can farm it for content. When I interact with this person, some other person's gonna get mad and do a reaction about that. I can go over there, I can stick my henchmen on them. And so they are strategically infiltrating our spaces. And when we get excited, I'm going to show them how smart I am, I'm going to show them how dumb they are about science or philosophy, we're feeding right into their playbook. That's exactly what they want us to do.
It doesn't bother a lot of people in this group, though, because there are too many people in this group that would fucking throw any goddamn so-called friend under the bus real quick to get a few more fucking subscribers and views.
Yeah.
And a lot of people care far more about elevating themselves on the little YouTube platform than they do about any type of real like human decency or how they may look in the like long run. What happens when you do get a big channel and then somebody pulls out a video like from several years ago when you're like looking like shit.
I got caught up in that yesterday. I did. And that that wasn't good.
Hello again.
But anyway, I decided to make a change in this channel. I'm going to make a few people managing moderators and give them permission to do it because I don't watch the chat very often. So if this bigoted shit pops up or any shit pops up that's offensive, throw them the fuck out. And it's you, Samami, and Maya Atkinson, Bree, Stephanie, and I'll pick a few other people that can do that.
I'm gonna highly recommend Pragmatic Crystal if you see her come through your
Yeah,
chat.
definitely. PC. She's great.
I'll put it down anyway.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that they can stop some of this shit, because I did not watch the chat yesterday. I haven't read it yet because there were 4,000 chats, and I have a life. So I wasn't watching.
But if you read about a dozen of them, then it just becomes repeat. So
right, yeah.
Anyway,
one change that we want to make. Anyway, so Swiffer, you haven't said anything yet, or you haven't had a chance to talk. Did you want to say something?
I said a few things. I was actually very interested in the argument too. I just want Jim Bob to actually defend his first premise. I think the mistake when engaging with people like him, especially him, is that he doesn't understand that he's giving the argument. He needs to give independent support for his premises, not ask questions, because questions aren't arguments. Now, I understand that he was going to have some kind of minimal reason to believe as argument goes through, if everybody he talks to can't give some kind of conceptual analysis of how propositions can have truth values on physicalism. But I mean, look, like there's tons of stuff that's been written by, people like Fodor since the 80s on this topic.
Swifter, can you clarify what that first premise is?
All effects in physics are neither true or false, or more true or false.
He's trying to show that there can't be truth under physicalism.
So P1 just begs the question against physicalism. So it's on his side, his burden, to show that there's some kind of internal incoherency or implausibility of that. And for that to happen, he would actually have to learn about the causal theories of reference and representationalism, stuff that's just like garden variety things that have been discussed for a long time. It's not to say there's not debate about which theories to hold to. There's like ADT theory, there's best theory, all kinds of stuff like that. But he doesn't even know the basics. He doesn't even know the semantics, the linguistic concepts like sense and referent.
Yeah.
And I'm so motivated to talk to him because he has such a following and he's such a moron.
I know.
I love it.
So,
He's back in the chat. Do you want me to time him out or hide him, or do nothing?
I just banned I'm thinking from your channel on account of the fact that they just called me a faggot.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, he's a coper. He has a coper.
This is what you got, man. This is what I'm saying. It's like, we've got to know who you're dealing with here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't mind being called a faggot. You want to call me a faggot? That's fine. Show your face, faggot. Okay.
Not
want
only
to see my
Jim Bob,
face?
sir.
Hey, tell me your name, Howard.
Jim Bob brought his posse with him.
And Mike, this is the part that hurts, right? I'm just gonna speak about racism. It hurts. I know it doesn't sound cool. I know it doesn't make me sound tough. I know I should have thicker skin. Trust me, I've been the only black student in multiple schools, and I'm typically the only black person in my work environment. I've dealt with lots of racism. I have plenty of thick enough skin about it. It still hurts. It hurts. And it's stressful and distressing. And these are things that I don't want to deal with in my space. And again, there's a price to pay. Because I don't have as many people calling in, and I don't have all drama and craziness going on in my side chat. But a lot of that is I didn't want to be subject to racial slurs because I have thoughts to share with my community on YouTube. And you talked about making the change to moderation. That's something all of us need to think about, is how do we mod our chats. Yeah. But we also need to think about the cleanup effort about when these things happen, because it's never just the Jim Bobs and the Andrew Wilsons. It's always them and their communities and the way they weaponize their. You'll notice different degrees of asshole. So Doug Pine Creek is the type of asshole who won't mention your channel because he hates the idea of promoting your channel, even if it is, because you disagree. Jim Bob is the sickum type of guy. He's gonna say, this is Speed of Sound, and I was on big dummy Speed of Sound's channel. What channel? And people come and what channel is it? It's Speed of Sound. It's Answers in Atheism, right? He'll say it over again because he wants to sick them. And so now when you're dealing it's great that we have the mod wrenches out now, but there's now a lot more modding to do. Yeah. And I don't take lightly the fact that Stephanie, who is somebody that's a great mod, has to deal with actual slurs in the act of modding, right? And for me, like, it's easy because I noticed a long time ago my community was disproportionately women, disproportionately LGBTQ, disproportionately people of color. And so when I realized if I'm shaky on those things, I'm gonna lose my people. And it ain't even about being an ally or none of that. It's about being a friend and not wanting to lose the people that literally take care of me, right? Because I came into this community because I've been fucking isolated since COVID, and like without these people, my social life just falls completely apart.
You know, Jay, that as Pine Creek once told me, oh, you've got a strong back, you can take it.
Yeah, and you hear stuff like that. So
right.
for me, it's just
but why should I have to, or why should you have to? Why should anybody
Right.
have to? I mean, why do you think you can dish it and why can't you take it when it gets dished right back to you?
And there is that sense of responsibility. So like Grayson and a lot of us, I've debated Ken Hovind, and I had people come to my channel as a result of that, some on our side, some on Kent's side. And I had back and forths with a lot of those viewers. And when the rubber met the road, even though we tried to be accepting and understanding and have conversation after conversation after conversation, they went full mask off bigots in the end. Right. And started
but they never take
saying
their mask
slurs
off.
to people.
We got these winners in the chat right now.
Yeah, and I felt terrible. Do you understand? Like, I exposed my friends to that. My friends got slurs hurled at them because I wanted to engage with this. Do you see what I'm saying? And I had to really think about that. And that's what I mean by cleanup effort. It's like, it was important to me to like draw the same boundaries you did, Speed, but also say, I don't want these people around. And if they're going to come around acting like that, we're going to get rid of them. And you will notice, if you really take that stand, you will notice who doesn't interact in your chat anymore. And you'll start to notice when you go other places where they feel comfortable. And it will tell you an awful lot about the priorities in that channel. When you go to Jim Bob's chat, I guarantee you, you will know at least 10 people in Jim Bob's chat that maybe even have wrenches that you've seen trolling all over the place. And you'll be like, oh, and you'll recognize we flushed them out of our community right into the Jim Bobs of the world. Yeah. And now now we're dealing with the backwash.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah. Hey, Swifter, do you have a channel?
No.
Swisher? Okay. It's Swifter.
I said Swifter. Okay, don't make fun.
I'm sorry, it sounded like you said Swisher.
Yeah, go fuck yourself, Leo. So I'd like to have a conversation with you sometime, Swifter. If you can reach out to me via email, that would be cool. About physicalism. So.
Yeah, Trey, I actually spoke to you. I switched account, or I got whatchamacallit.
You were,
but that was on Grinyard Reagents.
What was your name before?
Grinyard Reagents. So we kind of know each other a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, I'm old.
I mean, I've only spoken to you like in the chat a few times.
Okay. But anyway, reach out. We could have a talk about physicalism. I think it's a really important discussion because all of us atheists, go into battle, and I think we should be armed with a little bit of philosophy and a little bit of foundation on how to deal with some of this stuff, and that's some good that I can do in the world, I hope. So anyway.
Yeah, I mean the theories get pretty like dense and like silly, but I mean there's just like a general schema that you can apply, and it's going to be good enough. It's not really on the random agnostic or atheist to understand these things in great detail, especially when you can't get an account on the other side, and you can't get a conceptual analysis of how propositions and truth values and the mechanisms that'll work under like a dualist or an idealist, well, really a substance dualist worldview.
Yeah, my physicalism is a little, I don't know if it's unique or whatever, but it's a little bit hard, and I have ways of basically representing these things like propositions and truth under physicalism, and I think it's a little Leo hates it, and it's a little bit eccentric, but I would like to talk to somebody about it and work out where I'm wrong.
I think you're fine. There's a lot of different ways to talk about things in physicalism, whatever. But I think the reason why like it gets so much scrutiny is because physicalism is the only program that offers like like future progress and stuff like that.
Yeah, and yeah, and it solves so many philosophical problems when you get the model right and you apply the model strictly. All of these fucking epistemological problems disappear. They just fall like dominoes, and that's why a lot of philosophers now will describe themselves as physicalists. I put my email in chat.
Oh, sure. I'll take a look.
I have a question for you guys, actually, like Swifter, Leo, Mike, because I don't consider philosophy to be my pastime. Let's say, how much do you guys think these philosophical conversations are sort of shaped by creationist or religious thinking? And I'll just give you the comparison real quick. If somebody asks me like, what's the best way to combat creationism with biology?
All right.
Whatever the answer is, it's probably very different than what we consider to be the cutting edge priority of practicing biologists, right? Because that's going to be something that's got some applied thing or some basic thing. We've got to do this other thing if you want to address creationism. And I'm wondering, like, how much of that happens in these philosophical conversations? How much would we be talking about these things if not for explicitly needing to address people with that type of thinking?
Yeah, that's a kind of a big subject. It definitely has an influence because their way of thinking is going to muddy the waters, but they're I lost my train of thought. What the fuck? Yeah, it does have an effect because, but it's also the way the common man thinks. The problem with physicalism, if you read about the philosophy of physicalism, is that it runs counter to certain intuitions that humans have. Like, I have this mind thing, and I have free will, and I have this and that, and it runs counter. Those intuitions run through all humans, even atheists. So, in that respect, the answer to that question is no. It's not. The influence isn't that great. See what I mean?
Yeah.
It's these intuitions we have about our mind that muddy all of the waters when you're having that discussion about physicalism. And in some respect, we owe the world, us physicalists, owe the world an explanation for how physicalism accounts for all of these intuitive things that seem to run counter, to physicalism. So when a creationist starts asking you, well, how did the liver evolve? They have a point. We should fucking tell them how the liver evolved, right? But they won't sit around and listen long enough to actually hear the story, right? Because it's a long story.
All right. I think you need to set your stream to subs only.
How do you do that? Can you do that?
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
How the fuck do I do that?
Let me try to figure it out.
I can do it on YouTube?
Of course you can do it on YouTube.
Well, you have to do it on YouTube.
I don't know if you go into YouTube Studio to do
YouTube.
something or.
So subs only for chat. That would be under community.
I could be wrong, but I think you have to do that before you start the stream.
Yeah, probably.
No, you can do it. No, you can do it in the middle of the stream.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it gets changed. I've been in chats that have been changed.
All of Jim Bob's acolytes ask such incoherent questions, though. Where is causation in physicalism?
Yeah, right. Yeah, what the fuck?
Yeah, it's because they don't know what physicalism. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Their questions are literally just nonsensical. Like, Jay, to your point, like, these conversations definitely do happen in philosophical circles, like outside of these creationist clowns. Like, there are merits to having these philosophical discussions about, like the foundations. But like specifically what Jim Bob is doing is has nothing to do with those philosophical. Like he's not mirroring any actual philosophical arguments. Like he's just prattling on, and his audience just doesn't realize or even understand what he's talking about, because he's not talking about anything that actually is sensical. Like at the end of the day, like nothing he's saying is actually coherent.
Oh, these guys are giving me a lot of dumb to respond to. I kind of like that.
I've been on JimBob's server. It's full of like
it's bad.
It's really bad.
There's
Like,
plenty
he
of
literally
dumb.
just
There's
posted a
plenty
question
of
in this
dumb you
comment
can
here.
find.
Where is progress in physicality? Like, that makes no sense.
so what he's responding to is what I was talking about. So there's a theoretical virtue where there's like optimism about progress in a research program, and physicalism is the only thing that can of the mind is the only one that can argue offer that. The other ones can't, right? Because we can learn things about the world, and we can learn about how like the mechanisms or how the mind works, and that's what I'm trying to say.
And there's one more question here that was coming up in your debates that I would just like a shot at answering really quick. Jim Bob kept asking, and Ortho Eric here in the chat is mirroring the question: how do you determine between an emergent property and any other physical effect? And it's like very, very simple. Like,
oh my god,
there are certain rules that describe the dynamic behavior of things, right? If a new set of rules applies to the whole that doesn't apply to the parts, then that is emergent property. It's about what rules govern the system. Like, you can describe a macroscopic system using quantum mechanical rules, but it's much easier to do so using Newtonian equations because it's emergent. Those sets of rules are emergent and only apply to the whole on a macro level. They don't apply to the parts on a micro level. That's how you can determine if something is emergent or fundamental, is which rules govern its dynamics.
Wow, Grayson, you've just brought me back into the emergence fold with that little idea. Thank you.
Are you talking about weak? You're talking about weak emergence there, right? Not strong.
Yeah, weak.
Yeah. Like, I'm talking about emergence in, like, if you read like Phil Anderson's like brief paper on reductionism and emergence, it's very clearly about what rules govern the system. How can you describe the behavior with what set of rules? If it's a rule that doesn't apply at the fundamental level, then you're dealing with something emergent.
So I think they actually, when you guys say emergence, I think that they're taking it that you're saying something like strong emergence, like in property dualism. But that's my suspicion. I don't know.
Yeah, strong emergence has problems. I guess that's the one that I rail against. But yeah,
here's another challenge. Oh, Steph, you were going to say something. Go ahead.
Yeah, if physicalism and therefore determinism is true, why do you hold criminals accountable for their crimes? That's just, again, here's another complete category mistake that's going on here. It's like, come on now.
That's a question
because we're talking about human society. We're talking about how to negotiate rules within which we can exist in society without constant warfare.
I would also say, like, just from a pragmatic level, if somebody breaks the law and nothing happens, there are no consequences, that's going to lead to worse outcomes. Like, you have to do something about that behavior. Like, it doesn't have to be retributive and punishing them.
I just answered. See, this is the fucking problem. These assholes, they'll come up and say, well, I've got a story here. We've got this study that shows this, and they'll tell you the exact opposite of what the fucking story says. It's like, okay, don't answer the question. Grayson just did. I just did.
And I did yesterday. In the debate with Jim Bob, I acknowledged that you can have determinism
it's like
free
fighting
will.
with Jello, for fuck's sake. It's just ridiculous.
The simple answer to that question is, if you have a tractor that keeps killing people because it's defective, you take its spark plugs out and you put it in the fucking garage.
Leo, he thought that you were like not a physicalist or like a weird physicalist because you held to compatibilism. He's like, it's so funny.
The other thing I find hard to sometimes communicate is that there's a real way that people like Jim Bob's acolytes are not ready to have these conversations.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that, a lot of times when I see a creation versus evolution debate, for instance, the person on the evolution side will jump into things that sometimes I'm going, and sometimes creationists do the same thing. They'll do it intentionally. They'll do things that are like, we might talk about this in graduate school if this was related to the area you're specializing in, right? It's at a different level of conversation in the field. And sometimes it's like, I hate to say this, but if this was a real thing, we would say you don't have the prerequisite background to be having this conversation. Like, there's a reason we have sequences in education, right? There's a reason we teach things in a certain order. And then what really comes on top of this is when you unfortunately like put your faith in the wrong places, you then unlearn. You've given authority to somebody who's actually teaching you the wrong things. And so not only have you like not had the basic foundation, you've actually like learned the wrong things. And so you're like in negative space. Like you need like corrective to even get you back to being like a sort of more of a blank slate, unlearned position.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to say that to people without sounding super arrogant.
Yeah.
But it is the case. And
Just lean
education
into it, Jay.
actually
Jim
like
Bob's
shows
audience
us
needs
this.
to go back to elementary.
They do.
Yeah.
Really need to revisit the basics of these things.
Yeah. I have that problem all the time. They're just, they ask a question and I almost want to tell them, look, you're not prepared for the answer because you don't know anything about what I'm going to tell you at all. And there's absolutely no way for me to catch you up on this. So just shut the fuck up. I mean, there's no, like back to how the liver evolved when Rebecca asked me that question. It's like, okay, Rebecca, how many years are we going to spend talking for me to explain this shit to you?
Well, as soon as you do, then she's just gonna say, "Oh, okay, but how did the heart evolve?" though?"
Yeah, exactly. She'll switch. Or how did life happen in the first place from rocks, right? Yeah.
And then eventually, if you answer literally all the questions, they're just gonna pull a Jim Bob and say, "Well, how can you know anything at all?"
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Grayson, that's a really good point.
I can't tell you the number of times that this exact fucking thing has happened, or something really something analogous. Literally, the most egregious example is the conversation I had with Pine Creek, where he challenged me to find a study that showed a reduced suicidality, not just ideation, but suicidality itself in a trans population. And I found a study, and with a couple of things. I basically have a library of these things over on our new the Transposition Channel's Discord. There's a whole bunch of resources of sports, GnRH agonists, a whole bunch of stuff. Anyway, so I find the study and I don't say, and he said in the middle of his stream, I was on his stream, in the middle of the stream, he said, "Oh, did you see that? This is the study we just looked at. This is what we were talking about. Were you here an hour ago? We were just talking about this." And he averred that the study showed no risk, no diminishment of risk in suicidality among trans populations who have been offered gender affirming care in the Netherlands. It doesn't say that. It says the exact opposite.
Right.
And you walk him through the study, he goes, most self-assuredly, well, read the conclusions. So I read the conclusions, and it showed a diminishment in risk. And it's like, what do you do?
I know.
When someone with a large channel tells their large followership the exact opposite of what peer-reviewed research shows.
Right. They lie. Or do they see something different? Do they see black when it's obviously white? I don't understand. Standing for Truth does.
All you need to realize is that it's an example of people being incredibly disingenuous, and they don't like it when it's pointed out.
I also hate to say it. We get the feeling because of what we say that we're having a debate. In reality, we are in the middle of a war, and that's exactly how they see it. This is a war. It's a spiritual battle. It's a battle for not just the idea space, but also the power space and the political space. And so they are hanging on to these ideas, not because they're good ideas or supported ideas, but because they're necessary to hold up their worldview, their beliefs, their politics. Yeah, I mean, it's the classic case of motivated reasoning. right? And unfortunately, that is how they see it. When they're in their spaces and they don't think we're around, they're quick to talk about spiritual warfare and how evil we are and how they can't compromise with us because we have no morals and no values and all of this stuff. You've got to recognize you may not have wanted to be in a war, but the other side has determined that you're the enemy and they're coming for you.
Yeah, we're in the war. Yeah, man, and they are really coming for us. I mean,
and for some reason, Doug is with them, even though he
know.
doesn't believe any of that
100%,
stuff. Ostensibly.
100%.
He will. Like, I literally was on a panel with Andrew Wilson and Jim Bob, and I was arguing with them, and then Jim Bob brought Doug from Pine Creek on to side with them against me.
Yeah.
And like, so, and Doug was actively fulfilling the good little role of a Christian nationalist, even though he thinks it's all a bunch of BS.
Yeah. I used to be kind of like Doug in that way, like 24 years ago, 24 odd years ago, when I identified as a Republican. And I do understand how that happens. And for me, it was a matter of, I had some fears, and I was listening to a particular stream of media that played on those fears, and it worked for me, right? And it took a while to change, and like in the last 24 years, I have gone from one end of the spectrum all the way over to the other, and it had happened like step at a time, and sometimes it was like an avalanche. But I understand that conservative mindset, and it's mostly based on fear. They get certain things, certain beliefs that you have, certain things that you're a little bit afraid of, right? And they play on those and they bring them out. And then you start nodding approval. Oh, yeah, you're right. And it's almost like an evil worm that gets inside of you.
Have you seen those studies, Sound, where they can predict with better than 50% accuracy your political leanings based on how you react to emotionally charged imagery?
Right.
And
right.
If you react with this very fearful, very emotional response, you're typically going to be conservative.
Yeah.
So
it's all fear. Yeah.
There's a reason why most of the studies also show that those with a higher intellect tend toward leftist politics more than they do rightist politics.
Yeah. Yeah, and the solution.
But I think that poisons us real quick. Because listen, I'm we're on the same side about most of these things, right? I literally think we win every single debate. I think they're on the wrong side of every single issue. And I don't even think it's close. But what I think we do though is we overvalue the truth. We overvalue being right. And sometimes what I've learned to do is really admire the way the other side plays on aesthetics, plays on emotions, plays on shared values, because those things are so important to the human experience and human motivation that if you overlook those things, I think that's how we keep losing ground.
Yeah.
Interesting. I'm gonna have to go, guys, but thank you for having me on the panel.
Yeah. I am
good to see you, Grayson.
It was great hanging. I hope I hope we do more.
See you, buddy. Thanks.
Are you gonna be on tonight?
Yep, I do stream every Thursday at like 7:30, so I've got to go get ready for that in an hour. So
everybody go check out Grayson tonight.
Yeah, I by the way, I have a meeting I've got to be to in 3 minutes, so I've got to end this. I'm sorry, I forgot.
yeah, no worries. I think Steph is on transpositions at 8. I'll be on Skeptic Haven at 8.
An hour, so I got to get going. So everybody's got places to go and people to be.
Saturday, stop by the Grassman Chronicles. We're going to be talking about the Dog Man.
All right.
Okay, thank you guys.
See you later.
Okay.
Peace out, guys.
Okay.